Board of Park Commissioners. It is Thursday, November 17th, 2022, at approximately 6:01 p.m. at the Paula Hassel O'Connor Community Building, 733 North Prospect Avenue, Park Ridge. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mary Ann, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Commissioner Bendy?
Here.
Commissioner Bowe?
Here.
Commissioner Coyne?
Here.
Commissioner Grau?
Here.
Commissioner Holting?
Here.
Commissioner Tunnell?
Here.
Commissioner Leduc?
Here. Does anyone have anything to amend, add, or delete in regards to an item to the current agenda? All right, seeing none, are there any public comment on non-agenda items? Also, seeing none, I'd like to move on to the approval of minutes. I move to approve the regular board meeting minutes of Thursday, October 20th, 2022, and Thursday, November 3rd, 2022. All in favor?
Second.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, John. Now all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That passes, and we're on to the report of park officials. As the president, I just want to say thank you to the staff who worked so hard on the Oakton proposal and had so many community meetings and worked just so hard to help everybody know what was going on and know what we were planning. So thank you again. And now, no attorney report?
Nope.
All right, well, we'll go to you then, Gail.
Excellent. I will try to be quick, but I do have some things I want to say about Oakton. But first, I wanted to mention we've had a couple great all-staff meetings this week. We had an open enrollment. Diana Ganji and her staff Patty, and also Sandra H. and payroll assisted, and it was great to be all together with all the full-time staff and share again the wonderful benefits and the changes to the benefits, which several staff came up to me and again appreciated what the board recommended or approved for our recommendation with the benefits. So thank you. And yesterday we were all together again. It's been a marathon week. We had a full-time all-staff training, safety training, and Jennifer Myers, who's our safety coordinator, led this along with, ironically, 4 of the members of the safety committee, and 4 of the members or 3 other members are sitting here today, so they all participated and interactive and really the best safety training I think we've had. So it was really good. A lot of interaction with staff from all different departments. Going off of what President Leduc had started about Oakton, I just wanted to talk just briefly about the referendum. Obviously, we're aware that it successfully passed last Tuesday. And as of today, the unofficial vote count is 9,107 yes to 7,129 no. So that margin is 56.09% to 43.91 no percent. So yes, 56.09 and 43.91. I thought it was very interesting. I went back and reviewed the totals on the Cook County site from April. It's hard to believe it was April 2013 when the voters passed Prospect Park referendum. The percentages were almost identical with a lot smaller vote total. So that total was 4,390 yes to 3,401 no, and so it was a 56.35 to 43.65 ratio. So very interesting to me, at least, in terms of the vote. The staff, we've already started, as you can imagine, thinking about the future. We're really looking forward to the improvements, not only taking care of our badly needed improvements, the current needs in our outdated 53-year-old facility, but also filling programming gaps and offering new recreation opportunities. As we all know, the Oakton Ice Arena has a very rich, long history in Park Ridge, it offers, you know, something for the beginning skater through the Olympians, who we're so proud that have grown up skating at the rink. We have several. The new turf, meeting rooms, support facilities, walking opportunities, indoors and outdoors, as well as improvements to the driving range, netting, and gathering areas will be enjoyed by ages and interest groups now and into the future. We also realize that all of our residents do not have the same priorities, and we're not in favor of this project or portions of it. We're very committed to keeping the issues that were brought up as concerns as important considerations as we move forward in the design development of the project. As I said, we've already started working through next steps. We had a staff meeting the other day, and our minds are already reeling about things. And I've gotten several emails from, you know, as you can imagine, a lot of people that work in the industry interested in helping us and working on this project. Superintendent Wolf has a schedule set up, estimated schedule in his report, so I won't go through that whole thing, but the next stage is design development. And so that's getting into the nitty gritty of, you know, the plan that was set forth in front of everybody. That goes through next spring. We've already been in communication with a few of the user groups and assured them that they will have input in this phase. And we'll also be keeping the public informed and also having some sort of a feedback session, at least one, with the general public on elements of the project. I want to preface that we have a budget, as we all know, right? And we need to be mindful that any suggestions will have to fit within the budget. And I just wanted to make sure, because I think it's very important at this historic vote and project, that I thank several people for their hard work and persistence throughout the process. The commissioners, thank you for all of your time. Current and past commissioners, I think we've had 3 boards working through this project. And some, has anybody been through all 3? Cindy, congratulations, been through all 3. But there's been 3 boards. The staff committee and the citizens in support of the Park Ridge Park District bond referendum. The staff committee has gone above and beyond their regular work during this process to educate the public on the facts, with initial work starting 5 years ago, and they deserve an extra thanks. Margaret Holler, who spearheaded the communications and informational campaign with me, Superintendents DeAngelis, Wolf, and Armour, managers Julie Grieve, Brent Dolan, project manager Jennifer Meunier, executive assistant Lou Cars, supervisors Jim Dehue and Jordan Mann. Of course, the whole team of staff were involved in some way with the communications of this project and provided support to the rest of us during the process. The citizen committee was led by resident Gary Martin and Lynn, I'm going to screw up this name, Hetskastanis, and also heavily assisted by Serena Shurik and Siobhan Howe. Lots of really interesting, tough names. Peter Mersma was also an instrumental part of their group. So we look forward to bringing this updated parking facility to our community. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody got the proper things and really recognize what a historic project it is. You know, most park districts, you know, passing one referendum in a decade is a big thing, but we've done 2. So it shows, I told the staff we have the support of, you know, the voters. So we take that seriously, and we look forward to, you know, making sure we include the comments we heard, and, you know, moving forward to make the best project that we can. So those are my general comments, so we can move on to the next reports if you want. We've got the next thing on my list is the History Center Agreement Addendum to the payment schedule, and this is a discussion this evening. This is on page 10, my memo on this in the packet. And then there's supporting documents, a letter that is requesting this change from Cheryl Williams, the president of Park Ridge Historical Society. And then following that is a resolution and a second amendment to their lease. The Park District's lease with the Historical Society is follows that. And we've worked with Executive Assistant Lou Carson, and I worked with Dirk on those last 2 documents. So I've been working with the Historical Society on this for several months. When this request was brought to me, And so they brought it to their board, and then they requested this. We came to the terms of their recommendation of 10 years to complete their payments versus the 4 years that are left in the agreement as it stands right now. So Randy Deerfield and I met several times about this. You know, we've all talked about this before. There's been an addendum, you know, addendum 1 before, but this agreement is for 50 years. So this is why I think, and they've made a real, very good effort in terms of paying what they've paid to date, which is $250,200. So they owe $166,000. So I think that it's a reasonable request for this group to make, to extend that out 10 years. The reality of this is that the Historical Society is a very important part of our community. When this opportunity came up, that building seemed like a natural, and then they came to us. They provide programming, and it's not, you know, it is considered recreational. You know, there's all different kinds of recreation. There are communities, I think I brought this up before, that there are certain communities, and ones I've worked at in the past, that it's all under the umbrella of the Perk District. So you may have a Perk District staff, you know, running the historical program. So it just depends on the community and how it's set up differently. But definitely they bring a benefit. They're very concerned that if they make this payment, they could make their payment this year, but then they have no other money to operate and then to raise funds for other things. I know that the fire truck is a source of, you know, people question why did they go buy the fire truck if they, you know, don't have funds to make their obligation. And what was explained to me is that they looked at that as bringing exposure to the Historical Society and hoping that more people would come into their programs and then they'd get more money, and it would all be a, you know, a positive cycle in terms of their ability to meet their obligations. So on top of that, I even considered Paul Adloff, as we all know, from the beginning, and some people may not know, from the beginning of Prospect Perk Project, has done so much for us in terms of volunteer work that we would have probably had to hire a consultant for. So we talked back and forth about that and the prospect of maybe adding that in here. Somehow we came to the conclusion that they didn't want to go there, but I mean, I listed out all the projects, and I could get that to the board too. And I don't think I sent that to the board, but of all the different things that Paul accomplished for us, I mean, starting back when we had to do the land use agreement here, when we went for the grant, all different things, the statue and the gates, and there's several other things. So it is my recommendation to grant this 10-year extension, or 6-year extension, to make it 10 years for their payment. So I'll open up for discussion, and again, I'm not looking for approval tonight, just a discussion, answer any questions.
Commissioner Graff, you want to start?
We were required to fix up that building, right, whether we had a tenant or not.
We probably, Terry, yeah, we were.
Yeah.
We couldn't have left it like
That was part of the agreement with the shipping.
ship up, yeah.
For the federal dollars.
Is that we fix that right away, or? Okay.
Yeah, I was here when we signed the initial agreement. I was shocked they agreed to that much money, and I would be in favor of forgiving some of this. Did that come up in the discussion?
Yes,
at all?
it did. They requested that.
Okay.
And I didn't know if the board would be amicable to that, and I certainly am. And
Well,
that's-
considering it's our building,
Mhm.
and we were required to fix it anyway, and I should have brought it up at the time, but I felt like it was there. You know, that was something they should have negotiated, but they didn't. So now they're coming to us, and they're saying, we can't afford this. I looked at their financials. I don't agree with the interpretation on the fire truck, but that's another thing.
Right.
That's how they want to run their business. But I feel like it's our building. But they're going to live there rent-free then, after the 10 years?
This is like in lieu of rent, right?
Right.
Yeah, yes, so the answer is yes,
Right.
after that.
And how did they, I mean, so they asked for something different than this, but you suggested this.
There was just more of a start of a conversation, and what what we thought was fair. I talked with Superintendent DeAngelis. We came up with a couple different options, and You know, I did throw out there a number, I looked at a consultant fee for, you know, the, like historic, you know, research person in Chicagoland area, and I calculated out, I don't have that right here, but I can send that to you. And I don't think they wanted to get into that, because it's tough, he didn't track his hours, and he was a volunteer, you know,
Right.
so.
Well, but I guess I feel like it's our building,
Mhm.
and we had to do it anyway. So
Right.
I never thought it was fair to saddle them with that, because they don't have a very high profile.
No, it's a different, yeah.
I would be in favor of reducing this.
I think the History Center is very important to the community. I could see some reduction too. I think we could help them more, marketing especially, you know. I think they need help there. They need help in fundraising. So, you know, I think we should offer more help to them. Maybe they come up with some of the money, but, you know, or the money that, on a timely basis, but, you know, the numbers I saw, I don't know where they're, you know, they don't bring in a lot for membership, you know, their grants, so I think it's gonna be a struggle for them. So
We talked about, I had some suggestions and about some, you know, that they should really try to think, and I know it's hard when you're dealing with a small group of volunteers, right? We all are involved with organizations, and so, Cheryl came back to me when, you know, she was making this request that they'd be interested in, you know, joining out like in one of our events and trying to think of something they could do
Sure.
as part of it to make money, so I think they're really interested in trying. But
can we make that happen, or?
well, the suggestions just came up, and we're gonna meet, you know, we're gonna meet in the, new year. about it.
Good. Yeah, because I think I think they need some of our expertise, you know, and
Well,
the time we can give them.
I agree with you, but it gets tricky, right? Because they're not an affiliate, and so we have
Do they want-
several groups coming at us to do, you know, can we put this in your worship? Can we do this? Can we do
Yeah.
this? And if we did it for everybody, right?
Yeah.
It's like one of those things that there has to be some definitions
Sure.
of.
It's a tricky, you know, definition of what they are. They're not affiliate, but
Right.
they could be, maybe,
They're
but,
really a tenant. I mean,
yeah.
that's what they are.
So, you know, like I say, I think they need more help.
I
That's all.
do give them a full page in the brochure, and I design it for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's lovely, I know you do that, but I don't know if it's, you know, are we doing some more stuff on, I'm
gonna tell you how we tried to help them and they didn't pick us up on it.
Oh,
That's true.
So they didn't sell all those fire trucks.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'm sure the Friends of the Parks could help you sell the fire trucks if you give the money back to the park district, because I know you owe us a lot of money. They did not take us up on that offer. I'm just saying.
So do
So
they still have unsold
Yes.
fire trucks?
So they
rather
they sold 2 or 3, yes.
There was
So,
a-
you know, it was just throwing it out there. I had talked to Margaret, and we have a really big mailing list, which they don't have.
Yeah,
So the fire truck's causing problems there. They
Yeah.
also lost members when they
I
got
know.
the fire truck. So,
Yeah.
you know, you can say you're raising your community profile, but when
I
you're
know.
losing
That was their
members-
intent.
Yeah.
Let's just say
Well,
that.
that
I
was-
believe
that
it was
was-
their intent.
That was
Play out as
someone's,
planned.
yeah, that was someone's idea of us, a reason why to buy the fire truck,
It was an
in my
opportunity.
opinion. But anyway, so we have offered help as Friends of the Parks, and they did not take us up on it. So that was.
Commissioner Coyle?
So, just for clarity, just so I can be clear on it, these numbers that you said in the board agrees to lengthen the term, they've agreed, at least the principles of those numbers?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Mhm.
So, then, I'm a little concerned, I mean, I have no objection to that, by the way, but I do think that almost anybody else that uses any of our facilities has to pay something to use them,
Yes.
whether they're an affiliate or not. And to basically, you know, reduce their rent to zero, which I think was kind of what was going back and forth, or at least reducing it further. Well, it wouldn't be,
It's not rent.
well, reducing their
It's like a lease.
they're reducing what they pay to use our building to zero. Is tantamount to the park district subsidizing the historical society. And that means that the taxpayers are now subsidizing the historical society. So I think we're okay with, I mean, I think I'm okay with that being a reason, you know, more reasoned amount and spread over a longer period of time. But I don't think that it's necessary, especially if they've agreed to these terms, to say, well, let's make them lower still. It doesn't, it just doesn't, to me, that doesn't really make sense. And so that's the extent of my comment on it. I think that, I will add that I think the historical, and I said this in the email to you, but it's a valuable part of our community to have the history preserved and have people, the residents have access to that. And so they do great things for the community in a cultural fashion, I suppose. So I want them to be able to continue and be viable. But it seems like if they believe that that amount allows them to be viable, then that's what we should go ahead with.
And I think, yeah, thank you. I think to Commissioner Grau's maybe point is that, you know, this is okay now, right? I mean, we're already on our second amendment. I guess that's, are we gonna be back here? Maybe, right? I mean, they're gonna give a good faith effort, and I mean, I guess we could always extend it out further if we want. You know, the lease is for 50 years, right? So.
Right, and it's not rent, so for 40-some years, they're not gonna pay us dividend.
Right, but they're paying for the use.
Up front, they're paying.
Right, they're paying up front.
They
so-
paid for the renovation of our building.
Right, I mean, it's kind of semantics, because
Some of it wouldn't have been done if they weren't in there, like some certain design. It would not have been done.
Right, and I appreciate the point, but I think it's still effectively a payment for the use of the building. Now, they paid for the renovation of the building, but in essence, if we had done those renovations and then moved in, we would have to charge them something. Well, we don't have to, but we would. But I would be arguing that we have to charge them something. So this is.
Whether it's a lease or
Right,
a
exactly.
rent,
A rent,
it's something that
right.
we had to figure out, and they understand that.
And that's all I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
So that's my point, and I'll stand kind of by it.
Again, there's time for bringing this back next month. So. Anybody else?
Well, I just want to say, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty much in agreement with my fellow commissioners. My one concern, though, is after this whole fire truck thing, I am fine with extending this now, but I know it's not something we can like officially write in because it would get real weird to do this as a contract term. But I don't want to be in the situation where if they're going along, they're making our payments, and 3 years from now they have the opportunity to buy a 50-year-old police car. Like, I think we can pass this, but with the understanding that like they need to prioritize paying us back, right? Like
I think they understand that, but again, it's a volunteer organization and people
Yeah.
come and go. So without it in writing, as we know, nothing, but I certainly can communicate that to
I mean, even if it wasn't an official contract term, but just like a little memo of understanding for them to throw in the file.
maybe in a letter,
But
yeah.
they're raising money to renovate the fire truck now, so it'll work. So that's their next goal.
All right.
All right,
I heard
But-
that.
But, I mean, I just want them to understand that if they were to purchase something similar and then come back to us and say, well, now we need it to be a 20-year term, that we're not going to be as amenable.
I will
But that we-
communicate that.
But that we do, of course, value the preservation of the history of our town.
Yes.
I have a question. I mean, I've gone to historical centers and usually the the ones I've gone to have been ones I've had to pay to get into. But what do like local suburban and historical centers do to like?
To
have
raise
pro-
money.
To raise money and have program that has.
A lot of them have programming, fee-based programming,
Like
if
what?
they're gonna make it work. Some, in Des Plaines, when I was there, it was a joint agreement between the city, the park district, and I feel like there's one other party, and everybody gave annually to the historical society for them to run. It's different everywhere. When I was way back when I was in Stringwood, it was a tax. It was under the museum tax. There's a museum tax. We use that for the nature center. Park districts use that tax. We could raise that tax. I don't know if we can do it for both the nature center and for the museum. I'm not suggesting, but I'm just telling you examples.
Yeah, I was just
You know.
wondering what,
They have, like, when I was in Stringwood, they had Christmas tree sales. They had pumpkin, they sold pumpkins, they sold
Yeah.
Christmas trees, they did things like that and programming. And not, fee-based programming, but people, the market for those type of programs are a little lower, I would say, in terms of what people will pay. Elk Grove, they had a different,
That was owned by the park district, so
Okay.
they did the museum tax and they had a full-time staff member.
yeah. You see more programming when there's staff, hired
Well,
staff,
yeah,
clearly.
yes.
And there's rentals at some.
Yeah.
There's one of
Do they do rental, a lot of rentals?
Elk Grove does birthday parties.
But here,
But here?
they don't have staff.
They don't have any staff.
So Oak Park, April, they had something going on
the other mansion.
there. Oh, that was a change, yeah.
I was just curious.
It's just, they're very different. It's a very different setup in different communities. And this is a very smaller, this is a smaller.
It's a small building. I've been in there.
Yeah, right.
And this is just open conversation discussion, right? So, those are interesting points, and it makes me wonder if we shouldn't look at, I don't know how you do it, because they're a nonprofit or independent nonprofit organization.
I'm not sure what their
Right, I don't know.
exact.
They're a
I-
Does it, 501c3.
501c3 type.
Yes.
But, it's not outside of I don't think it's very far, it steps very far outside, if it does, to the Park District's mission to have the cultural center. So I'm not proposing this or just saying discussion that, I would be more likely to entertain the idea that that the historical society become part of the Park District than I am about saying that we would forgive their loan. But, that isn't really on the table. They're not asking to do that,
We haven't discussed it. They
But-
know that other districts run
and
their
I'm
own.
just speaking as myself now, and just,
Right.
it really, that idea popped in my head because of comments you just made, so I haven't
Right.
necessarily thought it completely through. It would be kind of an interesting,
Well, that's part of the reason I was asking the question. Like if we put a little like staff grease behind this, like
right?
would it have some momentum in terms of?
The only way that we could do that, in my opinion, is, and Sandra and I had discussions about this, is can we, and I don't know the answer to this, use our museum tax for two purposes, a nature center and a museum? I think we can. The other question, Julie's having a heart attack out there. The other question is, we're not at a limit, or tax limit. We raised it at one point because they're very low. So that's an option we can look at and explore. I wouldn't suggest it for this year, but, I would say that that's something that could be looked at, throughout the next year, just to see, A, is it allowable? B, what is our limitation, what's our space in between what we're using and what we're not? And then examine what our future needs are for the nature center.
So if we were going to do that, then I would think that there wouldn't be a lot of harm in just kind of continuing further the recommendation that you
Yeah.
made here.
And then
And then we
meantime,
can
explore.
come back and
Right,
we can change it.
yeah,
Well, we can, I won't be here, but someone else can change it.
we might change it before you leave.
That's right, and
You could become a volunteer for the historical.
Exactly. You want to volunteer to run?
We'll put me up as an exhibit.
I just have one other comment to make, that because it's our property, prevailing wages were used
Yes,
in all of
of
this.
course.
So if, if they were in a different property, they would not have had to pay
Yeah.
all this. So I just think it was a bum deal from the beginning. And I was,
Well,
and I was
think-
told they were not given any, and you said you didn't believe it, but this is just what I was told, that they were told to take it or leave it, this is the agreement.
In the original agreement?
Yeah, that by Tom. Yeah, that's what I was told by Randy.
I
So,
can't speak for
it's all right,
Yeah,
they've
that's a
agreed to
pass.
this.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it's realistic and I don't think it's fair, but I'm in the minority, so.
Well, I think it's fair. I think we're working really well with them together, and they really appreciate what we're trying
Well,
to do.
I know, but for an organization that tiny, to pay
Right.
$400,000 to be in that building. that's
But,
what I'm saying.
in conversation, there's another organization in town that I'm not gonna name that was not happy that this
I
is
know.
happening.
I know.
That they're paying rent and they feel like, why couldn't we have that deal, right? So that was a conversation I had to have
But
with
they
them.
like the building they're in too, so.
Just saying, they,
Anyway, I'm sure their rent is a lot less than $400,000.
No, I don't know.
They probably
Can't
wouldn't
speak to
like this
that.
deal if they knew about it.
All right, so I think we've beaten the,
I'm fine with the extending the
Okay.
payment terms. I
Okay.
mean, that, it makes sense.
And can we help them more? Can we help them? I mean,
not with our current staffing level, I would say. I mean, we could maybe do a little more marketing, but then it's not within our policies, so we'd have to look at that and change.
Well, and what are
I
they
do
guys
treat
on?
them like an
Yeah.
affiliate, that's
Yeah.
what I give them,
We
affiliate,
give
in the
them-
Walmart fee, but they need to ask for it.
I mean, it would be nice if they could put together some programming, kind of like, how the park district sometimes hires outside vendors to do certain classes that are, beyond the purview of the normal park district class, like if there was, presentations they gave.
They
where
do
they're-
some things like
They
that.
do.
But if they did
yeah.
more, I guess,
Yeah.
like I was thinking, like because of my role as a Girl Scout troop leader, I spend a lot of time looking on various park districts pages, and yeah, I mean, obviously, we don't have a setup like a Wagner Farm or anything like that, but we do have facilities where people could do programs for scouts on, say, old-timey holiday traditions or something like that. Like, I mean, I think it would be good to talk to them about, like, are there creative things they could come up with where they could help defray the cost of what they're paying back to us?
Okay. Very good. Thank you. I'll bring that back next month. Moving on to marketing and public relations, if there's no questions, we'll move on to HR. Happy to answer any questions on HR. All right, that concludes my report.
All right, moving on to Commissioner Roll.
All right, and I'll just quickly turn it over to Superintendent Andrews.
Thank you. My report begins on page 19. I would just ask if anyone has any questions tonight in the interest of time. I will point out that when the report was published, the tax bills were still not available, but I confirmed that I was able to look up my tax bill online, so they have been published, so it looks like the penalty date is the 30th, I believe, and they're supposed to get mailed out on December 1st, so we'll move forward accordingly. Otherwise, if anyone has any questions, let me answer them.
A great load has been lifted off your shoulders as well. Good news.
Similarly, I'll avoid highlighting the report by funds, other than to say that I think we are on track to meet what we projected in the budget. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Did you want to mention anything about the financial projections or voucher list, or should we move with?
I just said we're on track, I think, with our projections, as we've published them in the budget, so we can move on to the vouchers. Unless any discussions, which I think they do not, so.
Okay. For sake of time, maybe we should just move right along? Okay.
I mean, if anybody has questions, though. you
Yeah.
know,
Or if you'd like me to give a more, bigger briefing.
You'll hear all about the numbers coming up.
I move to approve the payment vouchers in the amount of $377,734.25. Is there discussion?
Second.
Or is there a second? Any discussion, anyone? Vote?
Commissioner Bendy?
Yes?
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Coin?
Aye.
Commissioner Grau?
Yes.
Commissioner Holteen?
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Yes.
All right, that passes, and I will move it on to Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Arnold.
Recreation report begins on page 32, and do the same thing. And there's been lots of exciting things happening in the month of October, but if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And also, the managers here tonight, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer as well.
I only have a short comment on, it just seems like, I want your opinion on it because I was looking through it. It looks like things are trending in the right direction in terms of participation in all of our programs, right?
Yes.
That is great news, and I just wanted to make sure that was pointed out on the record, that I think that it is really exciting that we're moving in that direction. And then I had one other question, but I think I can keep it. It's not terribly important. It had to do with the camp survey results. So, we're always striving for great quality, but I also noticed that the number of people that are answering the survey is relatively speaking small. So do you have a process for improving the quality to answer these people's concerns when people are less than satisfied? Do you have a process for addressing those individual problems and also sort of taking into consideration that one person saying one negative thing can get you a 56% overall rating on a particular program, and it's because the 50 people that are participating only, kind of respond to the survey, right? So I just wondered what that process is. I mean, there's so few survey respondents that you could almost call each one and say, what was wrong, what did we do wrong,
Yeah. Generally, you would hear from the people who aren't happy in surveys.
Right.
And then there's definitely some that will just fill it out. Maybe they're feedback either way. But, we do hear from people who aren't happy, for sure. When they get a survey, they want to tell you what they're going to say. And then Manager Green and her team, as part of the process, would review the survey results as part of they're already starting on the summer camp brochure, so prior to that, they'd sit down and review the results and, see what improvements can be made, whether they're legitimate complaints. One of them we talked about that was kind of low. We're like, okay, it was communication. The parents didn't feel like, it was the kindergarten camp. The parents were like, what happened there? Like, oh, the parents needed more communication. So that was, that's easily fixable. If it was something that was really of a concern, we would have hoped we would have heard during the summer. That's really the process. Margaret sends it out, I think, twice, right, to try and get more respondents.
I'm sure people don't necessarily want to don't take the time to do it, whether they want to or not. It's not a priority for them, and I get it. I just wanted to make sure, and I was 99% sure that you were looking at all of those results and also taking into consideration that the percentages that are there are almost not fair because the sample is so small. So, anybody else looking at this and said, oh, this program was not very well accepted, you have to kind of dig a little deeper. So,
Well, and sometimes you learn some tidbits that nobody reported, so I mean,
Right.
it's good too. Good and bad, if it's really worked, it needs improvement.
Yeah, there are areas throughout the surveys for open-ended response and comments, so usually when it's negative, they definitely tell you why.
right. So that was the only comment I had on it. And again, congratulations on getting participation, back on the right track after last couple of years.
Hopefully next summer won't be as much of a struggle with staff, because it was just trying to staff to fill and manage wait lists and.
Could we incentivize anyway on those? Do people, do other districts, a raffle?
We
with a
haven't on
raffle or
camp.
A discount or?
We've done it with other surveys before. I'm not sure if we saw that big of a change when we incentivized them, or we didn't.
It was,
I think part of this one is the timing and who it's going to, because camp ends and they're starting
School's
school
starting.
right away, so they're kind
Yeah.
of involved in that. So sometimes we've sent it out like a little bit later after school started, but we still didn't get a great response because then it's so far off. So this time we went right away after camp ended again to see if maybe they would fill it up sooner, and it's still not a great response. So I think it's just who we're asking in that timing of when camp ends and school starting. It's just not a priority for a lot of people if they didn't have a real issue with it.
Busy families.
well, we got plenty of verbal feedback. There's that too.
So that's all I had, unless you, are there any other questions for Ramon?
I have a comment. I liked how marketing worked and did the parade, showed the parade at the main park with the kids in their Halloween costumes. I thought that was a nice to see that in action. So, nice teamwork. Good. Thanks for sharing.
It's always a fun day at the preschool on Halloween.
I will say, I hope to enroll my kids in camp next year, more camp next year. I enrolled them for 1 week, and my younger one got COVID. Like, right before camp was gonna start, and it was very easy for me to cancel. Like, I called somebody, it was like, kids got COVID, and I was like, all right, I'm doing your refund right now, so.
That probably was happening a lot this
I'm
summer, Julie.
hoping that next year, my husband's in school now, and so he'll probably be interested in 1 week, so I'm hoping to have a better second try next year after that. They were so sad when they couldn't go.
Okay. Any other comments? I will turn it over to Commissioner Hall.
Thank you. And I will in turn it over to Terry to talk about his buildings and grounds report, more exciting updates in Woodland.
There are
And
some.
lots of schedules. I like the schedules.
Yes. So my report's on page 54, I did a package of the superintendents that you should see if there's any questions. So if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer. If there's anything else you'd like me to highlight.
No oaks.
I knew Cindy was gonna mention no oaks. Are we afraid the oaks are gonna get the oak trees that the
No.
other ones have, or?
No, actually,
I forgot what it's called.
this process was delegated off to our Parks Board person. We work with Manager Meunier, who's also a landscape architect. I know they work with a couple of different nurseries and some experts in the field just to kind of talk through what kind of trees and things are expected to be successful. So they are seeing a change in that based on some climate in Zone Creek right now. So a couple of things that we had on the list, they looked at and said, we're going to recommend against that. And it was actually very educational for the staff as they worked through it, because we also had a couple of trees that they were intending on planting should be planted in the spring versus just the fall. So So that's why there was a hold off on a few of them. But yes, we're on the list this year. So we're not taking a pass on it going forward. We're just having some.
Our total is, oh, so 8 in the spring, okay.
Yeah, so as you to that point, we have obviously a goal of at least 40, and so just, precursor, we're not gonna hit that goal this year, but next year the goal will be to do the 40 plus the 8 that we're holding off on for next year. So we've got them planned, but we're holding off to make sure we can plan it the right time to be successful.
You see, is there a reason you plant firs in certain places?
We've had some, we've obviously seen a lot of decline in those, but we've
Yeah.
also, occasionally in some areas that we've had a certain species of fir tree, and then we hear from, we have intentions of putting a tree there, and we'll hear from the neighbors, and, we've had one here, it's kind of changing the way our yard functions, and, while it's not specifically an order, we're trying to be conscious of our neighbors and what they've had for a while, so if we've had mature fir trees in an area, we're looking at different species that we anticipate to be successful in that area. We're not just saying, oh, that one died, let's just put it on, just like right there and see what happens. But we're changing the species, but trying to give them still some of the environment that they've come to become used to. So.
And North doesn't have many trees, those are new locations, right, for trees, that's great.
All right, so any other questions on the buildings and grounds report? Anything else you want to talk about in the report series? No? All right, so then we'll move forward to the activity center window replacement bid. I can motion we can discuss if needed. I move to approve LZ Design Build Groups as the lowest responsible bidder in Centennial Activity Center window replacement project bid in the total amount of $62,050, which includes the base bid, multi-purpose room windows, and the amount of $49,400 in alternate number 1, library windows, and the amount of $12,650, and to authorize the executive director to execute and deliver the agreement. Can I have a second?
Second.
Terry, anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I do have a memo on page 47. I will point out a little unique in this project approach. Down at the bottom, you'll see we have our typical chart down there that identifies the funding sources. What I do want to bring to the attention of the board is that just due to the timing of this project, production time and delivery time, and because of the sealants that we need to use to put this in, we're not anticipating installation until April, May anyway. And so with that, when we saw the numbers came in slightly above what we had available for the budget, but we did budget, as we've discussed in the capital budget presentation, additional money to continue the project next year. We realized that since the project's not going to happen until 2023, that if we anticipate the inclusion of that additional money budgeted for next year, we can do the base bid, also include the alternate, save ourselves some of the time of additional bidding for next year, but still be within our budget, move forward with this section. So I talked this through with Superintendent DeAngelis, and she agreed that was financially prudent to move forward with this as well, and something that we could do. So it's just, I guess, finding a creative way to make sure that we really keep this project on track. So. But it is slightly different, so if we definitely want to make sure that we are spending that dollar amount piece of state budget for next year. So.
Yeah, I had that question, and I hear windows have really long lead times right now.
Yeah, a couple things do. So, and, it's also got a, like just the installation method for also doing anything in the building. We want to make sure that we have, warmer temperatures in the shower. Other than that, is there any other questions?
All right, so can I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Coyne?
Aye.
Commissioner Grau?
Yes.
Commissioner Hulting,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuttle,
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Ledoux.
Yes.
Alrighty, so we will move on to policy. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Tuttle.
Thank you. I have before me IAPD-IPRA conference discussion about attendance and consensus of the attendance and policy. So I'm turning that over to,
I could take it, yes. We just put, there's a policy, as Commissioner Tuttle alluded to, that is in the commissioner manual, that 2 commissioners can attend NRPA or IPRA conference. However, we have 3 people that would like to go, which is great. We have money within our education budget that this will be fine. It won't restrict anybody from doing anything else. And I think that we're just bringing that up because it's in the policy, and we're just asking the board for consensus that you're good that 3 people go to the IPRA conference this year, 3 commissioners.
have we talked to the attorney just to get an opinion on that?
No.
Just if we want to change the policy.
Oh, we could change the policy, but the board
Seemed
can.
like what is the recommendation of having 3 commissioners go versus 2, like just with the discussions that you have to be careful about having and
Oh, right,
with the meeting.
open meetings, yeah.
But more than 2 usually go to the luncheon. and
Yeah,
that's
we've
what
had more than 2 go to different parts of it, right? They'll go to the lunch, and, you know, the way it works is that most time the commissioners don't sign up for the full package or the full amount, and so it's like pieced together, it's usually like 2 people, you know, and so we don't know.
And they're in different sessions.
As long as Park District business is not discussed,
Right.
that's fine.
With
I
3
mean, you're
people.
talking with other Park District commissioners,
Yeah.
that's different.
Mhm.
I'm not going to the conference to talk to
Correct.
people I see all the time, and I'm both, but I'm going to talk to other people in other districts and learn from the other people who are there.
I think it's a good opportunity. If we have
Yeah.
people interested, I think we should do it, and if the board's okay with it, I'll make sure with Dirk it's not a problem, because it states this in the policy.
I have no problem changing it, I just don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, we can change, well, you can change the, you can direct us to change the policy.
With ourselves.
I understand that.
Dirk can't get us in trouble.
Consensus is fine, so is everybody okay with it?
I think so, yeah.
All right, great, all right. Thank you. Yes, right. Yeah, we just have to have that on record in case we're concerned.
Well, we should change the policy.
Yeah,
Probably. Well, who's in charge of policy? We'll have something.
I'll work on that.
Working.
Yeah, we could, yeah, we'll work to, well, no,
As many are
as many as want to
interested,
go.
Within budget, you know, I think
Within
that's
budget,
really what
yeah.
it should
I
say.
mean, yeah, I mean, that's really the critical language.
Does it?
No, it's going to say 2.
Sure.
Since it's just a discussion this week, how about we work on it and bring it back for, is that good?
But she,
That's it.
Yeah.
If the district budget's coming, it's about 2 interested.
Yeah, great. All right, we'll work on some language to change that with Commissioner Connell.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm gonna yield the floor to Commissioner Bendy, the governmental.
Gail, what's new with Franklin School?
Franklin School.
Do we have an agreement with them or something? Or, you know,
I'm staring at you, because I don't.
The IGA,
it's been a while.
is the IGA what you're?
Oh,
yeah.
Franklin specifically,
Or
or?
Northwest Park?
Oh,
I just was wondering if there's, wasn't there something going on? Like a swap?
we talked about, thank you. We talked about a land swap, but they are finishing their projects, I believe, before we go there. Yeah, we gave a temporary use of the board approved that during construction, so I think that we're waiting to hear from
And we're
them.
not gonna do anything with Janine Schultz, right? No, right, nothing else. He's-
Right.
Right, okay. Refreshing my memory too. Thank you.
Oh. sorry. That's me. All right, any communications or correspondence? Nope, seeing none. All right, so now I think we're heading back to Sandra for the 2023 proposed operating budget presentation. Woohoo!
This is the second installment of our 2023 proposed operating budget presentation. So I was going to start off with the timeline. So again, on the agenda for tonight is for the board to adopt the truth in taxation resolution determining the 2020 tax levy, which will be collected in 2023. I think in the questions and answers that we distributed earlier this week, if you didn't have a chance to look at those, there was a question about when a discussion of tax levy should take place, and I believe our answer was in the discussion for adoption of this resolution, and if the truth in taxation resolution, which determines the tax levy, it has to be, so that levy amount needs to be determined not less than 20 days prior to approval of the district's tax levy ordinance. So if it weren't approved tonight, because the second meeting falls on the 15th of December, if we did need to make adjustments to the budget and get agreement from the board related to that, there's a possibility that we would need to have a special meeting just to make sure that we're within those 20 days. So today we are also going to present the operating fund. And I want to remind you that we have provided some responses to questions and answers that we've received to date. And if you have additional questions for anything else in the budget or that come up related to this presentation, we will get those back to you. I am going to be on vacation next week, so Gail will be quarterbacking the questions and answers.
Questions, please.
Lots of questions.
So I will be preparing the budget appropriation ordinance unless you're not moving forward with the truth taxation resolution for approval in tentative form at the December 1st meeting. I want to point out that the current proposal does require the truth in taxation hearing because the tax levy increase assumptions are greater than 5%, and the hearing would take place on the 15th if you're sticking on the timeline here. And the board would approve that tax levy ordinance that date. And then we'd be able to file the tax levy ordinance with the county by the deadline, which is the last Tuesday in December. So that's why the timeline is laid out this way. We like to have the budget appropriation ordinance approved as early in the budget year as possible, if not the prior year. But we do have more time if we do want additional changes to the budget that we don't have agreement on. So we have until the end of March to approve the budget appropriation ordinance, but that always creates a lot of uncertainty, and we have to get all the capital projects off the ground material to start preparing bids for January. So just a reminder, that's what we have coming up, and that's why the timeline is set up the way it is. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Are we going to discuss any of the emails? Is that built into tonight, or?
I think if
If it really is something we're voting on tonight, I would say, like, if it affects the truth and taxation vote.
yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like although the tax levy is separate from the budget, we all know that they kind of impact one another. So I would think that the discussion for the truth resolution would be an appropriate time to bring up anything like that.
Yeah.
Or is just part of our questions,
For-
or discussion when we go through our presentation, or at any time during the presentation, please stop us, and, we can have discussion at that time as well.
And one of the things we've talked about as well is that, how we usually go through the different categories, cities, that's the other thing, like the capital, and if the people want changes in the capital, that'll be for the next meeting. But we can certainly talk about it tonight too, but there's such a long presentation.
And, yeah, I just.
Right,
I
if
had
it
a couple
relates to the
questions, And I didn't know when we should have.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, it's like.
The sooner the better.
The sooner the
Yeah,
better.
the sooner the better.
Yeah, because I want to prepare that budget appropriation ordinance and have it with, not having to make as many changes as possible on the fly at the December 1st meeting.
But if we want to go through, does everybody agree, if there's contentious, we usually go through salaries, right? And that's going to be next time, or tonight you want that?
Well, yeah, I mean, usually
We lay it out.
we'll say, this
Yeah.
is the budget appropriation ordinance, and
Right.
do you have any input on these categories?
On the changes,
that,
yeah.
you
So
know,
tonight.
you
All
wanna
right.
direct
That'll be
us
later.
Okay,
around?
at the end. All right, that's really, now or later?
Yeah, later.
That's my question, okay.
Later, yeah. But as usual, as we're going through the different sides, we'll, take questions.
All right, with that. So the strategic plan, as a reminder, consists of 5 core areas, which are the focus of the park district. Exceptional customer experiences, financial stability, sustainability, operational excellence, employee development and retention, and infrastructure and capital management. A copy of the detailed plan has been provided for you and is included in the 23 proposed budget document. Each core area contains long-term goals, strategies to achieve those goals, and then annual tactics that are derived from each department's annual work plans. At the last budget meeting, you heard tactics for 2023 as they relate to investment in our capital assets and our employees. And throughout the presentation tonight, you will hear about tactics as it relates to our programs and facilities. And again, the copy of the 23 tactics are also included in the proposed budget document, and what you see on the screen is just a snapshot of what that looks like. Another snapshot is to show you what it looks like on the website where you can find these documents. It's on the public information page. As we discussed, this detailed strategic plan is included within the proposed budget document. And that is where you can locate that. You also see that the presentation from the last board meeting is available there, and tonight's presentation will be posted there as well. So the purpose of our presentation tonight is to present you with a high-level overview of the proposed budget with a focus on the most impactful operating areas for which you'll be providing us direction. So in case you haven't had a chance to review the budget document, I want to spend a little time, again, explaining how the budget is built and what is entailed in the 275-page proposed budget. So to do that, we're going to review the different levels of detail contained in the proposed budget document. It contains several levels of detail, summary reports by account, summaries by function, and fund summaries. Oh, and I missed the first one, the financial software detail reports by budget line item. And that is the most interesting one. We're going to look at that first. So this is a snapshot of what you see in the budget document. We're using the sample from the ice arena. And you can see, well, you probably can't see because it's a lot of little numbers, but it is the most detailed level. It comes right from our financial software system. and it reflects each line item input into the budget planning module. So this example includes positions, hourly rates of pay, hours per day, days per week, number of weeks, and number of employees to determine these part-time salary budgets. So this reflects the work that all of the staff members do to put in the detailed information. The information then rolls up into the summary report by account for this area, which provides totals by general ledger numbers. So this is a sample of what that looks like within the budget book. And then we have summaries by function, and each of the general ledger accounts is then incorporated by category into the expense summary for this cost center. And that's what that looks like within our budget document. And similarly, different areas are combined to ultimately result in the total summary for each fund. So since we looked at the ice arena sample, those totals are going to be incorporated into the recreation fund totals, which is the sample of what you see here. And all of this is in the budget document. So since the budget controls how spending occurs throughout the district, I'd now like to review the structure of how we account for the funds. So tonight we're going to be reviewing both the general and the recreation funds. At the previous board meeting, we covered the proposed tax levy revenues, which contribute to funding these accounts, as well as proposed spending for the capital projects fund. So today's presentation will include information related to proposed fee increases. As a reminder, the Park District is fortunate to have a diversity of revenues among property taxes and fees for services. Generally speaking, the property tax levy supports general government functions, which include administrative, buildings and grounds, and certain overhead expenses which are not allocated to programs. So these revenues and functions provide the community with access to amenities for which we do not charge fees. As expenses are increasing in both the general and the recreation funds, we feel that it's important to balance revenue increases across both taxes and fees for services, which you'll see as we review each fund. So this shows our accounting fund structure. The funds highlighted in blue each have a separate tax levy extended for these specific purposes. The funds highlighted in pink are recreation cost centers for which we charge fees. And again, we are unique among governments that we have this diversity of revenues among property taxes and fees for services. While the capital fund does not have a dedicated tax levy, you do see the bonds and debt service fund, the third from the bottom, under the general fund. The tax levy for those bonds provides for the principal and interest payments on the debt. And when we issue that debt, the proceeds are the revenue source in the capital fund, along with any transfers we made from operations annually and grant revenues. So there are a lot of numbers on this overview comparing our current year-end estimates to the proposed 23 budget. So I'd like to draw your attention to what I want to highlight related to some negative numbers that you see there. The first leftmost side of the chart is showing our estimated year-end for each general recreation capital fund in total. You can see on the net line that the capital fund has a negative balance. This is due to the timing of construction expenses lagging the revenue recorded previously, which is reflected in the beginning fund balance. This is a good thing because we want to be certain of the available capital revenue before we commit to project expenses. The positive net in the general and recreation funds estimate a year-end, that our year-end result will be able to project transferred capital of about $690,000. So those two negatives add up to 691, that's why you see zero for a total. It goes out of the general recreation funds, is reported in the capital fund. Now comparing to the 2023 budget, you also see a net negative in the general fund of about $351,000. Higher general fund balance was generated by surplus in 2020 due to the lower operations because of the pandemic. This budgeted drawdown in '23 will move the fund balance toward our fund balance retention level of 2 to 4 months of expenses. Although it's negative, it's offset by a positive in the recreation fund. And that is reflected by a balance and actually a surplus in the operating fund budget, which we'll see in a little bit. So it results in a planned surplus to estimate a $300,000 transfer to the capital fund. And we're also increasing the recreation fund balance. So here I've highlighted some of the major areas of expense increases compared to the 2022 budget related to increasing labor costs. We covered this information at our last meeting, but I'm including it here again because the difficult labor market has been one of our biggest challenges in recovering from the pandemic, and the increases reflect the extent that retaining and recruiting quality staff is prioritized in the proposed 2023 budget. And it's the biggest component of increasing expenses in our operating fund that we review here this evening. This chart highlights the diversified revenue sources I mentioned earlier, comparing the 23 budget on the right to the 22 budget. And you can see that the balance among revenue sources by percentage is essentially maintained. As a result of the proposed expense increases I just highlighted and increasing operational demands, total budgeted revenues are expected to increase by 11.6%. And in the 2023 budget, approximately 47% of the district's non-capital revenues are budgeted from fees, while 44% comes from taxes, with grants, donations, and miscellaneous revenues such as interest expense, affiliate local permit fees, making up the remaining percentage. And in 2022, about 47% also came from fees, while taxes made up 46% of the budgeted revenues. And the difference in the percentage of taxes between 22 and 23 is driven by the increased grant revenues expected in 2023. It takes a larger percentage, so that's where you see that reduction. So to further detail how the revenues break down, this chart depicts how the recreation fees and charges are distributed. Sorry. Yeah, this chart depicts how recreation fees and charges, those revenues, are distributed across the activities we offer. And you can also see that the largest portion after property taxes and bond proceeds, which again are used to fund our capital projects, can be attributed to recreation programs. It's 16% recreation program fees. Similarly, the breakdown of expenses here identifies that the general government accounts for the largest portion of expenses. And again, that area includes administration and park services, which is responsible for maintaining buildings and grounds. The next largest percentage is capital expenses, followed by recreation programs. So that's the overview of kind of all the funds together. And now we're going to look, focus in on the general fund. We will be highlighting the park services area of the corporate taxing fund, as it accounts for the largest portion of the spending in the general fund. And we'll also look at the bonds fund because of the proposed limited bond issue that is included in the budget. But first, we're going to look at overall trends related to the general fund. So this slide shows the general fund historical revenues compared to expenses for the past 5 years, our estimated 2022 performance, and the proposed 23 budget. The revenues are depicted by the blue bars and expenses are depicted by the orange bars. So in 2017, expenses were higher than revenues. We were drawing down fund balance according to our fund balance policy. And in 2018 through 2021 resulted in surplus. In 2022, estimated year-end also projects surplus. In the 2023 budget, you can see that the general fund revenue is lower than the general fund expenses. So if we look at 2020, the difference is quite a bit larger than the other years. And that was due to expense control in this area to offset the drastic reduction in revenue in the recreation fund during the pandemic. So part of the reason we're budgeting for the lower revenue than expenses here is to rebalance that fund balance and draw some of that down. You'll see this in the next chart. So this shows the blue bars are showing the bottom line general fund balance compared to the district's fund balance retention level, which is depicted by the orange line. We've adopted a fund balance policy which requires that the operating fund maintain a fund balance, which is a minimum of 2 months or 17% and a maximum of 4 months or 33% of expenditures. So what we're looking at is a comparison to fund balance in accordance with this policy. So the intention is to maintain a stable level of around 25% in 3 months of expenditures. However, due to the uncertainty surrounding the pandemic, we did not transfer excess fund balance to capital in 2019 or 2020, as it was used to offset the loss in the recreation fund. And then you can see here in 2023, we're again projecting drawing down that fund balance. Because the individual fund balances must be used for specific purposes, the budgeted drawdown occurs over time. So this is showing a projection for debt service in the debt fund. The debt fund does include principal and interest payments on both limited and referendum bonds. But here I'm showing only the debt service related to limited bonds. Our capacity to issue these bonds is estimated by the purple line at the top of the chart, where it's labeled at the bottom, allowable non-referendum debt levy base. So as a reminder, this debt service extension base is an amount equal to the portion of the extension for taxing districts for the 1994 levy year. And then in 2009, the law allowed increases by the lesser of 5% or CPI to that amount. So it's kind of a bit of an arbitrary determination. That's what the legislature allowed. So that's what we're constrained by as to funding our capital, which is why it's important that in addition to the bonds, that we're able to generate surplus to continue to invest in those capital assets on an ongoing basis. So this is another many-colored charts. You may have guessed I'm fond of these. I want to point out that the blue that you see in 2007 to 2016 represents bonds that were issued prior to the financing for the renovation at the Aquatic Center. And then the debt service for bonds issued for the Aquatic Center renovation are represented in green. You can see that it was a larger issue, being that it's being repaid over 15 years. In 2016, there's a couple orange bars, bond issue we did in 2016. 2018, the darker blue bars, a couple. We did another issue in 2020, these light blue bars. We did a bond issue, and then in 2021, along with the refunding, we issued a one-year bond issue. So those years were short 1 or 2 maturities to maximize the use of our bonding capacity and finance capital projects in the short term, which maintained flexibility to issue bonds going forward. So I've added in here a representation by the yellow bars. We talked a little bit at the last meeting about the proposed $6.2 million bond issue. So this shows one way that it could be structured, where it would take up 6 years up to the capacity, and then we would have more capacity after the pool debt service is retired, 2028. We did meet recently with PMA related to the referendum bonds, as well as the structure for these. And we will be also considering an alternative to what I'm showing here, which is more like what we did with the pools, the 15-year structure, because we've done that in the past. We keep the short ongoing when we have we don't have a big need in any one year, and maintain that flexibility and capacity. And then when we can do a longer issue, we can structure that so we would again maybe fill in 2 years, and then those yellow bars would be a lot lower and still give us the capacity for earlier, kind of more ongoing additional financing. And it would stretch out for 15 years instead of the 8 that are shown. So we'll be working with them on that, and we'll come to you with these.
You're saying they'd be shorter but long, but
Yeah.
further out.
Yeah, we'd probably fill in 2 years up to the maximum, and then shorter and longer, and then we would have that every 2 years kind of flexibility again for additional capital funds.
Thank you for showing my favorite graph.
You're welcome.
That's what I needed last time.
All right. So now we're going to look at the overall trends of the recreation fund. It includes the recreation taxing fund as well as the various cost centers under it, which do not rely on tax levy revenues, along with the museum taxing fund related to Nature Center, which actually probably should be a little more purple because it has tax revenues and fees for programs within it. And also the special recreation taxing fund for activities related to the Maiden Islands Association for Special Recreation, which serves our community with special needs. So similar to the general fund, this chart shows the recreation fund revenue and expense trends historically. And here you can see the drastic reduction in revenues due to the pandemic in 2020 and 2021 as well, although we came back somewhat. And the rebound here in 2022, which is estimated to be almost back to 2019 levels. In 2023, we're budgeting for both revenues and expenses to grow as operations continue to expand and serve the community's needs. Now, this chart shows the overall fund balance for the recreation fund, and you can see in 2020 how the balance declined. However, we were in excess of our targeted fund balance as a percentage of expenditure spending in 2020, as well as estimated year-end 2022. So when our expenses declined so much in 2020, that's what created that ratio being higher. Although we drew down fund balance, our expenses were a lot lower. So our fund balance as a percentage of expenditures was higher. So with expenses projected to increase in 2023, as well as transferring our projected surplus to capital in 2022, the budget projects will be at that target of 4 months expenditures in 2023. So now I'd like to take a look at how the general fund and recreation funds combine to comprise our operating fund. Reviewing the fund structure again, the operating fund is the general and recreation funds combined with the exclusion of the debt service, or dashed it out, as well as excluding the capital projects. So this chart shows the various categories of operating expenses. At the last meeting, we looked at this breakdown over time and how full-time salaries and wages and employee benefits make up about 40% of our operating fund expenses. And I just want to point out here that when we add part-time wages and the wages of program instructors to the full-time personnel expenses, the total is 63% of our operating expenses. And here you can see how historically, pre-pandemic, our operating fund revenue has exceeded expenses. And the blue bar, again, represents revenue and orange expenses. As a reminder, in 2019, the revenue in excess of expenses of about $1 million was not transferred to the capital fund due to the uncertainty posed by the pandemic. You can see the deficit in 2020, where the revenues are slightly lower than expenses. The 2022 estimated and 2023 budget bars show that a surplus is expected in our operating funds, which is planned to be transferred to the capital fund to continue our investment in capital assets. So again, here you can see that our fund balance had been relatively stable in 2017 and 2018. And again, the increase in 2019 reflects the impact of not making the transfer to capital. But this increased fund balance helped absorb the impact of the 2020 deficit due to the pandemic. And that retention level remained higher in 2021 as we began to recover from the pandemic. But we see it coming down in 2022. And while it remains higher than policy, that is a reflection of better than budgeted projections for year end. So as a result of our balanced operating budget, the 23 budget fund remains stable from the estimated 2022 to the 2023. That's where these lines are very closely aligned. And the projected retention level declines as we move toward the 4 months of expenses retention level. As expenses are increasing, again, that retention level will decline even while fund balance remains the same because that denominator of expenses is growing. Before we look in more detail at the various operational areas, I'd like to review another high-level look of all the funds. Instead of comparing the 23 proposed budget to 2022 year-end estimate, like we did earlier, this is a look at how this proposed budget compares to the prior year budget. What I want to highlight here is that our 23 budget reflects both higher revenues and expenses than budgeted in 2022 in the general and the recreation funds. The increased expenses in our budget, the need to continue to invest in our employees and capital assets are the biggest reasons for our recommendation to incorporate the tax levy and fee increases. A large difference in capital fund expenses versus revenue is similarly due to the timing of our bond issuances. And we would plan for this next bond issuance in early 2020, in the first quarter of 2023. So now that you've seen the overall picture of the budget and the fund balance impact, we're going to review the details behind that. Each year when we embark on the budget process, management determines direction to staff regarding how to approach revenue and expense increases. So in order to maintain that balance between our tax and fee revenues that we saw in some of those charts, it's been our practice to direct staff to use the same constraint that we face under the property tax limitation law in increasing tax revenues when it comes to fee and expense increases. So specifically for the 23 budget, staff were instructed to not increase program fees by greater than 5%, which is the tax levy increase cap amount, unless expenses, including increased labor costs, indicate a higher increase, or market analysis strongly supports less or more of an increase. Similarly, regarding expenses, staff is directed that any expenses which do not have associated revenue increases to cover them in the budget should either remain the same as 22, be decreased where possible, or increased if necessary only by up to 5%, which again is the allowable tax levy increase. So exceptions need to be identified by staff and, if at all possible, offset by reductions in other expenses or increased fees. So this, just wanted to make sure that you kind of have the background of how and why we direct staff that way, because we have to start somewhere to build these budgets.
But the exception was increasing HICA, right?
So again, it could be an exception, but they worked as, in many areas, they were offset by reduced expenses as well. Like we talked about the IT position and identified other reductions in expenses. Does that make sense? With that background information in mind, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Superintendent of Buildings and Grounds, Terry Wolf, who will review the Park Services area, unless we want to pause and ask additional questions about the overview.
Well, thank you, Sandra. So the Park Services covers the majority of non-capital expenses that are incurred by the Buildings and Grounds Department. As you can see, there is a proposed increase of approximately $40,000 over the 2022 budget for 2023. This minimal change is due to some staff restructuring, a reduction in overtime, overtime, janitorial supplies, as well as a reduction in anticipated utilities. It should be noted that there are other accounts throughout the facility budgets that do include maintenance line items for various facility needs. We work closely with the recreation management team to plan a budget for those in their budget areas. The Park Services budget does include all building expenses for Rollers Hall, Hockey, O'Connor, the Hinkley Garage, and South Park, while it also includes certain building expenses for main park and activities. So this year, we do have just a few big highlights in the Park Services area that we're going to highlight, but overall you guys heard me talk about last week. Any chances? Right now. So anyway, biggest highlight in the Park Services area is that we'll be reducing our seasonal staff from 11 positions down to 4, which is a reduction of approximately $90,000. We will at the same time be increasing contractual services by about $108,000. And the purpose in doing this is that we're going to be making a shift from using seasonal staff to manage our planting beds across the district and using instead contractual workers to do this. So one of the biggest challenges we've had in this area over the past several years is that the planting beds need maintenance beginning in April and throughout October, even into November. Seasonal staffing traditionally aren't available to us until the end of May or June, and are usually out the door around August if you can get them to stay for long. So it becomes a challenge overall. So with this, we anticipate that not only will the main portions of the summer be managed better, but even we'll have a longer season in which we'll have all these areas much better managed. We have been using this practice here at Prospect Park since 2017, and it's worked successfully. Last year in 2021, because we were having some challenges with more recently renovated landscaping around the Centennial Fitness Center, we made a switch to do that with areas just immediately around the building. And again, we saw success there. So using the numbers from the square footage areas that we've done there, we've identified the square footage that we have across the district and use those approximate numbers to budget this and feel like this is going to be trustworthy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. One other exciting thing in this area is the new work order software system. Our current system is no longer being supported in its current format. We've taken the time to research additional formats and functions. We found one that we feel that would actually provide us really good service over the next several years and allow us to also include some electronic-based like inspection forms and things and stuff for us to assign to staff. We can reassign different responsibilities based on people being on vacations and things like that. So we think that's going to really help us improve how we manage and take care of our park system in general. So, and with that, as I mentioned, I will be turning it over to Margaret.
Thank you, Terry. I jump in here before turning it over to Superintendent Armour because the marketing accounts are budgeted in the rec fund under the rec admin center. So I'm just going to kind of highlight some of the bigger budgeted items. Our actual biggest budgeted item that's changing this year would be the addition of that full-time digital marketing specialist, but I'm not going to go into that since we discussed it at the last meeting. So I'm going to start out talking about the quarterly brochure. We are proposing to continue for it to be digital only for the full brochure, but to continue to mail a quarterly Spotlight 16-page newsletter. So those are kind of pictures of the digital summer brochure and the cover of the Spotlight summer newsletter. You can see that they coordinate with each other to give it that visual recognition so that people who get the Spotlight then go look for the summer brochure and realize they relate to each other and look similar. The Spotlight 16 pages, we highlight upcoming events, some new programs, and then we also include some other, or facility information, and then some other information. One of the issues had an overview of the capital projects for the year. The autumn brochure had kind of a short annual report and a letter about the previous year. So it's a way to get some other information into our residents' home. This year, we're going to add on a postcard direct mailer to support camp registration. The camp brochure kind of comes out between winter and spring, so it wasn't supported with a mailing to homes to remind people to go. So camp registration is really good, but we did hear somebody go like, oh, I didn't know about it, so getting something into their house would help. So the total of all this is budgeted at just over $37,000. That's for printing and postage. For just kind of a comparison, the last time we budgeted brochure was before COVID, and that cost $71,000 for the 4 brochures in camp. Definitely would be more now because postage and printing have both gone up, so this is at least half the cost, if not even more. The other thing we're proposing for next year is to really make a lot of website improvements, because we know without printing the brochure, we are driving more people to the website, so we want to make that more user-friendly for our customers. So we will be redesigning the homepage and the menu navigation. But the more important change is this API integration of WebTrack into the main pages. So first, what's API, right? I gotta read that, sorry, I can't have it memorized. API stands for Application Programming Interfaces. So it's the connection between 2 or more applications that allow systems to exchange data sources. So they would keep in sync with each other. So in this case, it would be our PR Parks website with the WebTrack registration information. So instead of having to go to the top right corner and click that little registration button to get to the RecTrack information, they would be able to go to programs. This is just a really rough mock-up of a sample page. Don't look at it too closely. Don't read it. So in this case, they could go to programs and then aquatics or swim lessons, and then the top of the page would still have kind of our general information of the program, but then the bottom half would sync with WebTrack to pull the specific program information, and then you'd be able to scroll through down them, sort over on the left-hand bar, and then click the register button here, and then it kind of finishes that transaction on the WebTrack side.
So you wouldn't have to go to register to find out it's full, right? Like, could it say?
Right, I think it would say if it was full here too. There's 3 districts that I know of so far that have integrated it, and it's Highland Park, Wilmette, and Bolingbrook. So those are good places to look for examples. Some of them pull more information or less. What it helps with is if you're new to coming and navigating the park district, you're instinctively going to go to programs and look for that program. You're not going to instinctively go to that register button to find a class. So this helps navigation in one more area, because also going to that register button, then you're doing a search for a program area. Where this, you're navigating to that search already, so that's another help. So this is budgeted almost $25,000 for a year. That's all I have.
And is that's not like an ongoing, that's like
No,
setting it
one
up?
time.
Can we take a little break? Terry's gonna fix and turn up the heat.
Instead of the air conditioning?
You said the heat's on.
We are now up to
The
3
heat is on.
commissioners with codes up.
The heat's on. I know, I thought we should take a. Go ahead.
We are now reconvening the regular Park Board meeting of the Park Ridge Park District Board of Commissioners. It is still Thursday, November 17th, 2022, and the time is approximately 7:55.
Okay, on to recreation. I think everyone knows the team here, but I'd like to introduce and recognize them. I have Brent Dolan, Julie Grieve, Ethan Williams, Jennifer Myers, and Justin Schering. They all play a major part in preparing this budget along with their direct supervisors who see all the programs. And that very first slide that Sandra put up showing the detail, that's what they all put in, and our eyes are crossed by the end of the process. But we want to make sure we get every single line item in and talk about in detail so many different parts of the operations. So they're here to assist in answering any specific questions that you may have that I may not be able to answer. All those details, they have that all most often at hand, but if there's anything we can't answer, we'll certainly get back to you. So a little bit of information about the work behind the scenes and how we get to the operational budget summaries you'll see. As Sandra already mentioned, the direction included to increase fees up to 5% if the market could bear it, and also if it was necessary due to a minimum wage increase or other increase in expenses. So part of the entire team's yearly research involves looking at other park districts' pricing and fee structures to compare with ours. And then they again also analyze the fee increases in conjunction with another minimum wage increase. This assisted with establishing new starting wages and evaluating potential scenarios. Of course, participation is always reviewed, what's going well, things that aren't necessarily running as we thought, and then ultimately make a recommendation for fee increases in each area. So if the board is interested in seeing any of the comparison information, specifically, we'd be happy to send for your review. There's a lot, so we don't provide that as part of the presentation. So staff across the board continue to do an amazing job. It was another year, not like 2020, but in 2021, but pivoting and responding to the many changes and challenges experienced again. But despite the obstacles, the total number tallies in 2021 show the district was able to serve close to 24,000.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Now they're hot.
24,000.
I guess I like to see
Speed up that quickly.
All right, Goldilocks.
Exactly.
Turn it off, just right.
And registered programs and over 280,000 daily users. So that, of course, doesn't include free events, people who walk through the parks, any offerings without a scan or registration. So that's pretty amazing, and we definitely have a very talented team of individuals out there serving our community. While we've not yet gotten back to the 2019 participation numbers, we definitely can't wait to see where this year ends up. We usually tally that towards the end of January and provide those numbers. As all those charts have shown, growing back to the pre-pandemic levels. So as we begin to run through the slide of the recreation department, similar to how the leaves and grounds slide was presented, there is most often going to be one slide with all the budget numbers on the top, and then a slide or two with highlights from each specific area. We'll go ahead and get started with recreation programs. So on all of the slides, you'll see the year-end estimate, 2022 budget, and then the 2023 budget. So this recreation programs area is the only area which does not reflect facility operations expenses. It's primarily the recreation program area. So that includes athletics, dance, camps, early childhood, preschool, teens, youth, the parties, music, Beyond the Bell, and the special events. As you can see, this picture tells a great story of the way the programs continue to expand and grow with the needs of the community. Obviously taking a dip during the pandemic, but now rebounding. Looking at the 2022 budget compared to the year-end estimate, while we were able to offer so much more, we were not able to go completely back to normal programming without some constraints, including some limited capacities and staffing challenges, as we've been talking about through the entire year. However, staff continue to create new programs or just to keep everyone participating throughout the year. So in the 2023 budget, we anticipate increasing participation, and this program area brings the budget back closer to where we've seen participation in pre-pandemic times. And a focus will be to continue to bring back as many programs that have not been offered in the past, while continuing to offer the new programs that were successful during the pandemic. So the next slide will talk about some of the details in this area. Throughout every area, staff regularly adds new programs to the portfolio. So we just have a few here as an example. Some teen special events are going to be added, and of course pickleball at Woodland Park. We anticipate having classes there. So we did want to point out one program that was increased over the 5% recommendation. This is the Schools Out program offered during the days that District 64 has off school. And this 7% increase puts the program more in line with the hourly rate of the summer camp hourly fees. And the remainder of the program areas are generally 5%, with a few exceptions of less than 5% if the market, if the staff didn't feel the market could bear that. There are a few events returned to the budget. The dance recital is back to a pre-pandemic show, and the Friday Night Lives at Main Park for the 5th graders are part of this proposed budget as well. There were many special events that we offered during COVID that remain very popular. So, as long as they're still going well and people are signing up, we'll continue to offer those in addition to what we're planning on bringing back as the pre-pandemic events, including the bunny baskets, the Icon Trunk or Treat still remains very popular, and the Santa Trail. This proposed budget also includes a part-time IMRF administrative assistant to assist the whole department of recreation programs in the increasing administrative duties. And then the starting wages were evaluated and increased across the board. Examples of those above minimum wage are listed here.
Wait, can I make it along?
I guess we can pause for questions about recreation programs if you want.
Aren't the assistants to the preschool and early childhood like grown-up adults and the counselors at the end about like children?
Well, it's part of the analysis, and these are competitive rates, and the timing of, say, Beyond the Bell is not a desirable time frame. So those are generally, you see the higher pay rates. And, that's one that was analyzed, and we are within the marketplace for those.
Same thing with like camp counselor, right? Cindy, like the camp counselors
Yeah.
are making more.
The kids are making more than the
What's minimum wage?
adults.
People,
For next year.
I think it might have been on the last slide. What's the total revenue from these programs before this 5% increase? But I mean, estimated.
So if we go back.
I think it's on the previous slide. I think it just flashed by too fast, right?
Is this your question?
Yeah, I think so.
So basically, this year's year, I mean, it's not exactly apples to apples necessarily, I guess, so
Right.
expanded participation.
Yes, we definitely have expanded.
We're going to have expanded participation. I just wanted to have an idea of what, I mean, when I look at the next slide, it says that 7% increase is only, I shouldn't say only, but it's whatever it was, $4 a day or something. It just gave me pause as to like, well, what is the impact of what is 5%? I just needed to know what those numbers were. So if I can increase that by, or decrease that by 5%, to get what it would be if we didn't do any,
Increases.
any increases, right? Or at least the cost.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I need.
Can I say, I'm sorry, can I say something about the early childhood preschool salaries?
Yes.
That's also the starting salary with no experience. So depending on how many years' experience, that does go up. And there's also a bump for if they have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree.
Thank you, that helps a lot.
That's good to know.
That helps a
Yeah,
lot.
I was kind of having pause with that too.
Right, what you'll see with all of these is just the starting salary above minimum wage. So for example, preschool, the starting is $13.50. So Julie has a range of, years of experience, so hiring, they have a guide. Okay, moving on to outdoor pools. As you can see here, the outdoor pools again saw, and as we discussed, I think just at the last board meeting with the summary, great pass sales and daily fee sales this year. So your estimate is slightly over the 2022 budget. And when you look at the net income, outdoor pools have historically done well financially since the Aquatic Center reopened in 2014 and Prospect opened in 2016. Just to give you a frame of reference there, except for 2020, of course. The 2023 budget, we're predicting slightly less net revenue than the 2022 proposed budget with the increase in facility costs as well as, of course, the wage increases. The proposed budget does include the 5% increase to pool pass fees as well as increasing daily admission to all facilities. With these increases, we still remain competitive with other surrounding district aquatic facilities with comparable amenities. And to remain competitive with other districts, the salaries for lifeguards and all manager positions have also been analyzed and raised again to start above minimum wage. And then additionally, a $1 per hour postseason incentive has been added to encourage staff to work through the end of the season where we have those challenges once we switch to the postseason hours, and hopefully that will be an incentive to stay. The aquatics department also has a part-time RMO position added, again to assist with the increase in the administrative responsibilities in the aquatics department. Facility hours will remain the same except for Hinckley. If you all recall, we did receive feedback on evening open swim hours this past summer. While the popular lap swim time of 5 to 6 will remain, hours for rentals have been adjusted later in the evening to allow for more evening open swim times 4 days out of the weekdays. Aquatics programs and rentals. Programs, rentals, and rentals are proposed to increase the 5% as well as the swim team. New for next year, staff is already in the process of switching to Stargard swimming for lessons. This program is offered by the same organization as our lifeguard certification program and will give additional structure in the program and more resources for staff. Resources to train staff using a combination of in-water and online training. And the use of the Hinckley pool for the swim team this summer worked out really well and allowed for significant growth in the swim team program, so that will continue. And swim instructors will also see a starting salary above minimum wage. Any questions or comments about aquatics before we move on? The Oakton Ice Arena As you can see here, our year-end estimate is significantly over the 2022 budget, and that is due to many factors. The main factor is the gaps in full-time staffing and the associated expenses from one position, specifically September through December. And there was also, as you can see, the revenue is higher, and there was more ICE rentals than anticipated. And there was a reduction in the bank charges and some utilities with the office being primarily closed as well. So those are the main contributing factors. The 2023 budget anticipates the full-time position, and the IMRF position in the front office will be restored and some office hours returning, in addition to some other details we'll review. So the Learn to Skate and the Learn to Play hockey classes were increased just, we have a 4% based on the market. We're kind of right on the cusp there with our competitors, as well as a 4 to 5% increase on the ice rentals. And the House League team will continue in coordination with the Express Hockey affiliate. And as just mentioned, the IMRF office registered position will be reinstated. This has been vacant since COVID. And we have salaries starting about minimum wage here listed as well. And we do have some additional revenue generated from the non-prime ice rentals, similar to what I just explained in the last slide, that provided some additional revenue. The affiliates are taking some smaller blocks of ice time in the spring and summer, and so then there's opportunities for more ice to be rented. So that trend is expected to continue next year. And the rentals filled up open ice slots that could potentially sit for them. Questions about the ice arena?
Just real quick, the 4 to 5% increase for affiliate, non-affiliate, like just a rough dollar amount?
The rough dollar amount for the affiliate ice rentals?
It's approximately, I'm sorry, for the classes?
For the-
Or the rentals?
The rental.
The rentals, about $15 difference.
Got it. Thank you.
Moving on to the fitness center. This year, an estimate shows the fitness center at a higher net revenue than what was budgeted this year. While the revenue is lower than budgeted, when able without affecting services, expenses were controlled to assist in offsetting costs. The 2023 budget does anticipate an increase in membership, group fitness participation, and personal training, where all seeing these continue to trend up. And this budget area also includes the indoor pool and indoor swim lessons. So the plan here is to continue to focus on retention and attracting members, of course, and have a strong marketing initiative in place with targeted goals to keep building participation through promotion on social media and member e-blast, introducing new fitness challenges to our members to increase participation, and an increased budget for member appreciation and marketing. As reviewed at the last board meeting, this proposed budget also includes a full-time registrar position to help serve the needs of the fitness center and community, and there were some expenses to help offset that as well. And this will also allow, as mentioned last time, for the staff to focus more on the retention efforts versus manning the front desk. We are proposing increases to fees, 5% across the board with the increase in cost around the facility. And we tried to put some detail here about the membership fee for the monthly option is to assist in offsetting the cost of the additional credit card fees lost revenue due to declined credit cards and EFT monthly payments, as well as the staff time to regularly follow up. So the paid in full membership fees, we're proposing a 5% increase, which depending on the membership that you have, it would be a max of $2 per month. And then a 10% and max of $4 per month for the monthly payment option.
And you can cancel, right? I mean, they can get a refund.
Yes. And the short-term membership fees, the increase is, for the 5% is $15 for 6 months. And then the 5% for group fitness punch pass, there's a little too much information for here. It depends on which punch pass is purchased. The largest increase would be for the 10-pack, so that would be a $5 increase. And then personal training really varies depending on what's purchased. There's a lot of different options. But the max amount is $5 for the 15-hour personal training package.
Do you have an annual membership now?
Yes.
But it's the same if you paid monthly, yeah? No. Right now, this year.
Right now,
Yes.
yes.
Is there any difference? Is there any difference in price if you paid annually versus monthly? Right now?
No.
No. So now you're proposing, okay, and then December. All right. What if you pay in December for the year?
It
Get
starts-
your
Runs a
membership
full-
now, that's what I'm saying.
No, it starts for
Justin will
the
take
year
it.
that you, or the month that you purchase for the year. So it's not, like, it's not prorated by.
It's not for a
In
calendar.
For a 12-month cycle.
In
not for-
December, if you pay for a year,
Yeah, so go get your membership now.
what about it?
Correct. Yeah, they would
Yes.
still pay 2022 rates if they bought in December this
Okay.
year.
That's your marketing campaign.
There, that's right.
Yeah.
And members are welcome to,
Okay.
even if it expires, let's say in April of next year, they
Yeah.
can renew early
Okay.
even and pay the 2022 rates if
Okay.
they
Get on
wish
it.
to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Very
But
good.
that would only be
That's
for, if you pay for the whole year at once, right? Like that's not.
Correct. Yeah, the monthly members, theirs is just going up, yeah, January 1.
Okay. Good.
Does that 5% keep us, you mentioned another aspects about competitiveness in the market, so are our fees similar, higher, lower than similar operations? I mean, I don't think compare it to, say, FFC, but I think.
No, we're definitely lower
Right,
than FFC, but
right,
yes,
but-
the similar facilities are competitive. There's others that are lower, but they don't have the same amenities as us, so it wouldn't be, we wouldn't necessarily be comparing ourselves to some of, the ones without the pools, and they just have small exercise facilities.
Yeah, when you're looking at these fees for fitness center, it's real interesting, because you have to look at all the amenities that they have, right? When you're looking at the lower fee versus some don't have pools, some do, some, they're very, very different.
Well, I had a question about the fees. So in terms of the increase, would that be like basically per family? So, if you have an individual who belongs versus, say, a husband and wife who belong, like, would it be $4 per head per month, or would it be $4?
I can answer that. So the first person, the individual, would be that's the max, the $4 if they're doing the monthly, the 10%. But anyone else would be an add-on, so their price would increase to 5%, but they're paying a lower rate, so it'd be a lower amount. So it would all
Alright.
increase, but it wouldn't be $4 per head. It'd be like
It would be based on
$4, then
percentages
$2.
rather
Yeah.
than dollars and so, okay.
It would be
that's-
based on their individual rate.
Because I was going to say, if you have a few people in a household, like suddenly that's adding up to quite a bit of a jump. But thank you for that clarification.
One more slide on the fitness center here. We do have some of the increases starting wages listed as well here for the month of locker room attendant, we are still proposing that position is suspended. That was a pre-COVID position, and we plan to remain vacant for the controlled towel service. And I know there's a detailed explanation sent on the proposed child care services continued suspension. This amounts to approximately $36,000 in savings if it's closed. Staff has been keeping tabs on this, and other facilities are seeing similar trends with, trying to reopen and then closing, and because of lack of participation. Justin did look up some information, and there's actually 48 members between the ages of 0 and 8, so parents are bringing some kids. So that's good that they're still going to recreate. And our fitness supervisor is looking for staffing to do some stroller classes, fitness classes, and also partnering with our early childhood and preschool supervisor to look for staff to teach classes specifically in the babysitting room there to, see if we're missing some people or if it's just really not an interest if we're working on our own. And interesting enough, when I was at a PEPFC early one morning to promote the OTIN referendum to give the presentation with Gail, and their babysitting room had 0 participants early in the morning too. So it's just there's a staff member there that was empty. So it's interesting.
No, I think it's good that you're looking though at adding some sort of like baby parent classes and things like that, because I remember doing that with my daughter but it was in a different district, and that would have been kind of like a nice thing to have closer to home.
Yeah, at least, we have to find the staff to do it, but at least it would be in the same location, the ones that are dropped off.
How's the wage compression, where people have been at the front desk for many years? Are they going to be making 25 cents more an hour than new people, or, how's that working? I hope there's a differentiation.
Yeah, there is a differentiation.
Okay, I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been challenging.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Can I just point out that everyone makes more than the preschool teachers? I'm just saying, I'm just saying. Beginning wages of preschool teachers.
Well, the beginning wages are not necessarily reflective of what the majority of them are.
Probably show you
I
those.
know, but I'm just saying.
So the driving range, had another fantastic year, and we've been talking about that throughout the season as well, and been very close to budget. So this year, 3 private instructors were added, and golf classes were condensed into a consistent schedule, so that makes nice availability. And the tea sales are continuing and creating an additional revenue source that was introduced during the pandemic, and the customers really like the process of just being able to purchase them there, so this process will continue. The group lessons also have a proposed 5% fee increase, and it's just about $1 average increase. The reduced operations and non-peak seasons work well to reduce staffing costs, and there's been no negative feedback since that was implemented. And this year, we have the phased purchasing of replacement mats each year, and the budget reflects 10 in 2023. And then the cashiers are the salaries above minimum wage as well. Centennial Activity Center. You probably know this is our home for senior and active adult programming, as well as the STAR membership. This center is subsidized in order to provide affordable education opportunities to seniors as well as rentals for the entire community. Also in 2019, began the independent contractor relationship with the Brooklyn Arts Center, and it's been very successful and continues to grow. As an example, the anticipated revenue in 2023 is $200,000 with a net revenue of $80,000, just for residents. So it's definitely helped us out in the facility as well. The staff and center continue to see growth in participation with creative options. And there's, of course, like at all the other facilities, continuing unavoidable operational expenses. The center has also not gone back to pre-pandemic participation, but has seen growth, especially in the past few months, and some increase in expenses that would account for the variance in the year estimate in 2022 budget.
So both those numbers trend up though, this year and next year are still trending up. That's great.
Can we go back to that slide just for a second? Thanks.
So again, the center continues to build back the membership from the pandemic. And this is one facility that we're definitely at the higher end for membership. And we did increase mid-season this year. And so we're not proposing an increase in membership fees in 2023. But some programs will see fee increases, including the trips to reflect the rising cost of everything. And the exercise classes, it's 15%, but it's just at $1 per class. The STAR sponsorship program remains very popular, and staff hopes to continue to expand that further. And then the open house, Spend a Day with the STAR program, was very successful, and the plan is to offer it 2 times a year. Get potential members in and an opportunity to sample the offerings. And our adult sewing classes have started and are proven to be very popular. So included in the budget is to include intermediate and advanced classes as well. And one-time learning classes that are also in the proposed budget are for ages 18 and up. And the goal is to have them in the evenings to see if there's other interests besides the sewing class. And staff will also add some similar classes during the day here towards the STAR program as well in the program. But some of the examples of these classes may include a first-time homebuyer class, one-time cooking classes, and an intro to genealogy class are the ones that are being discussed. The Medicaid was just that one slide. So they did see a bit of an increase in participation as an outdoor amenity in 2020, but leveled back off in 2021. And then participation again declined in 2022, but the year-end estimate remains better than budget, as there were not significant expenses experienced this year as in some past years.
Is there an attendant for that?
Yes.
Oh, there is. That's the expense, don't
Plus the
Plus the supplies.
The programs and the.
John wants to know how much the attendant makes.
Do you want a job?
Is it more than 13?
What did you say?
Okay.
More than preschool.
Oh, right.
It's not more than $13.50?
I don't know, how much is the education?
We'll give it up.
Minimum wage.
We'll give it up now.
Minimum wage.
13.
Your
Oh, I found
last,
someone who-
your last opportunity to work there.
We can't work anywhere. We're not allowed.
Matt can, he's,
Okay, the Wildwood Nature Center.
Last but not least.
So looking at the 2022 budget compared to the year in estimate, we again here, we're not able to go back to pre-pandemic programming without the constraints of capacities and staffing challenges similar to other areas. However, after reviewing just the October financials we received, it does look like we're actually going to end better than what's listed here. So that's, we're being conservative at the time this was put together, and we're looking better. We were thrilled to be able to bring back Earth Day and our fair events as well. So it's nice to see us all back and including the budget again. So the 2023 budget shows us bouncing back to pre-COVID amounts, participation in 2023, and we'll have additional programming opportunities with the second facility opening later in the year. So this budget anticipates a new facility opening in August. And additionally, revenues in 2023 include a shift of the property tax revenues from the general fund to the museum levy to support the planned increased expenses related to the Forest View expansion. So with the new facility opening again in August 2023, anticipated, the additional expenses associated with this facility include utilities, maintenance, and a cleaning service added beginning in August at the new facility and then for the full year in the current facility. And as discussed in the last meeting, the budget also includes the additional staff number starting in August, which will allow for the increase in the nature preschool, animal tale series, and then even more in 2024. There's just one area which increased above the recommended amount. The Wildwood birthday parties will increase $10 a party for a 2-hour party, and that is still well within the market for the specialized party service. They were actually a little bit under compared to some of the other things that we offer. And the starting wages were evaluated and increased, and you see some of the examples here as well. Any questions or comments about Wildwood Nature Center? Any of the other slides, we'll be turning it back to Sandra.
Just, I think I know the answer to this, but with the STAR program, that's the only program pretty much to show it with consistent net loss.
Yes.
Is that by virtue of the population that's being served and pricing that you have to do for that? Okay. That's fine.
And that's in our financial policies as well. With that, I will turn it back over to Sandra.
Thanks, April. So, when considering the fee increases that April just outlined, it's important to consider the impact of the increase in labor costs that we keep talking about on these decisions. So this chart here shows how prior to the pandemic and the minimum wage increases, which both began in 2020, program instructor expenses as a percentage of program revenues ranged from around 33 to 35%. So the blue bars here are showing the program revenues in each year, and the orange bars are showing the expense related to wages for program instructors. So the gray line is showing what those expenses for labor-related programs is as a percentage of program revenues. The pandemic-constrained years of 2020 and 2021 were inconsistent as staffing was very challenging. And then you can see that the estimated program labor costs for 2022 and 2023 are growing to 30% of revenues, even with these recommended fee increases. And then as you consider determining the tax levy for 2023, I thought it'd be important to consider the many activities that these revenues support. Residents who don't spend money on programming still benefit from park amenities that are free. In the last 2 years alone, the district has invested in all of the things you see listed here, probably others that we did not list. Plus, the Park District offers a number of free events and activities, and some of those are highlighted here. So in closing, as you consider the proposed increased revenues in the 2023 budget, similar to how the dollar amount that is added to the annual levy due to new property growth isn't typically considered an increase because it's absorbed by the increased tax base. Please keep in mind that these proposed revenue increases are lower than the current rate of inflation. So in real economic terms, our revenues are actually declining while expenses continue to rise. And that concludes our 2023 proposed budget presentation. If you have any additional questions that you've thought of along the way, address them now. Otherwise, please continue to reach out to us with your questions or comments as soon as possible. And again, if you can direct them to Gail, we'll respond and distribute the information as we did with your questions and comments from the previous presentation in advance of the December 1st meeting. And then hopefully you'll be prepared to provide your direction. Point. Thanks again for your attention. Yes, Commissioner Brown?
I have my questions now.
Excellent.
One was my question about the capital budget, and if I read it correctly, 2021, we budgeted or spent, I don't remember which it is, 2.3 million, 2022 was 2.8 million, and 2023 was 7.9 million. Is that correct?
Yeah, it include, the 2023 is including 3.5 million related to what we had planned for to spend for the Oakton project. It includes grant projects.
Yeah, there's a lot of grant projects there.
I'm not questioning the amount, I'm questioning how are we gonna do that? That's,
capacity wise.
that is like more than double?
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's not yeah, we did talk about that. It's not a lot more in terms of, like, when you look at the number of projects, they're all bigger projects, but there's also a good handful of purchases and things like that. So we've already started to look at that and started to kind of map out next year because we're very conscious of the fact that there's a lot there. And so we feel comfortable that I anticipated the question, and we have looked at that and kind of mapped that out.
If you feel comfortable, then we do. That's just huge. That's ginormous.
It is.
And if, a lot of it's planning, like 3.5 is planning, right? So
Yes.
nothing can go wrong there. But when we start like into the next year then, and you're mitigating problems, then like you need to be calm, right?
Well, I mean, it's a project, I mean, you know, Jennifer Meunier is also, she's the project manager, and she's very involved in this, and so we've kind of she and I work together a lot.
I don't mean exactly you, but the staff managing these projects.
Yeah, so, you know, another thing too, we've got some, you know, newer staff as 4 persons this year, that a little more, you know, my time is spent with them. A few of the smaller capital projects started in their area. We've already had a team meeting and talked about it works a little bit better when those are initiated with Jennifer, and she reaches out to them for feedback and input. So those are the sort of things we were to talk about that are going to help us get things moving a little faster and streamlined. And as you can see in my budget report, we're already thinking about, and we're spending a lot more time focused on milestone timelines for our projects so that we're looking ahead, planning those out already for other things, so that we know where we're going and we're planning to go forward. So. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of those, some of those are being managed by architects at this stage.
Right.
I think, so.
Yeah, the bigger projects, there's a lot of support through contractual, right?
Right.
That's built into the budget, right?
Right.
So that they're overseeing and make sure that our interests are kept in mind. So-
Right.
Like, and there's like over $1 million for the main park playground. We know based on
It's already
camp,
planned.
and it's a plan, but with the camp schedule, we're not gonna start that until camp's over. So we've got other projects we're working on at the beginning of the season that'll get, set up and ready to go for post-camp. And so there's gonna be a little bit of staggering too. That happens over the years.
But it's a lot. you're
It
right.
is a lot,
Yeah.
and I appreciate your concern.
Yeah, okay, and then one other one that came up in the emails that we're gonna put 30,000 toward energy efficiency in contractors. Where did that figure come from?
For consulting.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sustainability
Yeah.
consulting. We kind of talked through, I think one of the comment suggestions was, with the solar, community solar that we're looking to do, we're anticipating a savings of $20,000 to $50,000. And so one of the comments was, can we take some of those anticipated savings, even though they may not be realized at the beginning of the year, and use some of those money to kind of put back into, hiring someone or bringing someone on to help us out with sustainability. We do look at that, but we thought, this might be a good way to put, some efforts towards having some consultants that can help us out. Sandy and I have already kind of had some preliminary discussions about, who might be good fits for that, and we'll continue to look at that, see who we can bring on.
so do we know what that buys us? Or we just said that's what we have to spend?
I think there was a recommendation from Commissioner Hulting about a range, like X amount to X amount, and we just took that because we didn't know. Yeah,
I think we were
I
trying
didn't
to
put in
staff
an amount.
so. Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't put in an amount. I just put, either a part of a staff person or a
Yeah.
consultant to kind of go after energy savings, go after the ComEd incentives and make sure we're getting as much as we can out of both. So, yeah, I didn't recommend.
Okay, sorry, I thought that.
So the
I
range
would've recommended
was
something.
the estimated savings from the community solar.
Oh,
that
right, that's what it was.
Mary had
Okay.
said.
Yeah.
So when we talked through an additional staff, we kind of felt that since we were already working, as Terry said, toward identifying consultants, that we would look at something that fit within the range of those expected savings to add, but
And we don't know if those savings are gonna come, will cover the whole amount for
I-
next year.
I put-
It's just time.
Might be able to use that savings plus funding elsewhere to carve out some
Yes,
funds.
yes.
so we thought we could address the concern and that we would identify an amount that would be available to help to pursue some of the ideas that you've mentioned.
Are there other park districts that have a position or an allocation or contracted service that kind of addresses that?
I am not aware of any, but I have not specifically asked if anybody does, but I've never heard that as a going around talking. So,
I haven't heard of a standalone
No.
full-time sustainability coordinator. The only thing even close that I can think of is the city of Evanston has a sustainability coordinator, and I believe the city runs the parks. Like the parks
Yeah.
are part of the
They do.
city,
Mhm.
so that I think I talked to him after I got elected to this. I want to circle back with him. Actually, I just talked to him the other day, but he wanted to do more with the parks, but it was contained within his job as the city's sustainability coordinator.
Probably a lot of people are in our position because more and more of these grants have come up, more and more of these programs, and it's just a cyclical thing you see, and management of park districts, right? I mean, never used to be HR, and now there's HR departments, right? So this is, I'm not saying it's new, but it's newer, so there's not dedicated people. It's one of those things like your other duties, and you just, because it's come up and somebody's got to take it.
Yeah, I'd just like to see a priority rather than that's, the savings we might see one day. I would not be surprised at all if we save more than 30,000 just by spending 30,000.
Oh, for sure.
So how do you evaluate, like, if you're just gonna spend the 30,000 and say we're done, or like, how do you?
I think we put that amount in there because you guys requested that as a
I know, but it just
right? So we
seems-
haven't had time to evaluate.
We didn't say an amount.
No,
We
right.
just said that we want to accomplish these objectives, and I'm
Right.
not sure that that amount will or will not.
We don't know either, right, at this point. So
Well,
we're
then
just-
I
thought
say
it was
50.
a starting
we
place.
thought it was
Yeah.
the starting point.
I mean, to me, this is money to get more money,
Right.
and as I was looking through all of the tactics, and I'm like, you guys have done such an awesome job on grants and chasing after that money. And we're already paying this ComEd money. Like, we pay, all of us, pay into the fund that pays for these energy efficiency programs to run. And I want to make sure the district, gets out of it. Well, both the district is paying into it as well as the citizens of this, you want to maximize
Right.
how much you're getting out of the program. So I just see Oakton coming up. Ice rinks are huge energy users. They were going through the total utility costs at Oakton are very much in the same ballpark as the net revenue at Oakton. So electric and gas is about the same as the net revenue. So if you could take a bite, if you could take a bite out of that, we can increase our revenue. We're going to be expanding the facility, we're going to be offering more, and we want to make more money, and we don't want our energy costs cutting into the additional money that we're going to make through programming and rentals and all the cool stuff we're going to do at both Oakton. I was looking at the pool, the natatorium, and the pool heaters and the HVAC in the pool. That seems to be an opportunity too. So I look at these things as cost savings opportunities and putting money forward so we can save money and have more of those the money that we save from energy savings that we can put back into our programs and our facilities.
Yeah,
Not just look at it as a cost of doing business and we write the check to ComEd and we say goodbye, so.
Yeah, I think, we had a team discussion about that, and I kind of view it as like an allowance to start the process to work with a consultant to see where it could go. And I certainly feel like if we were to head down that road and we engage in a consultant, and they said, they started to look at some things, I mean, they're going to start off with things like facility audits and things like that. I would imagine a lot of that stuff's going to happen though before, but we could do that before we're even paying someone to do any of that work. And so I would think that we would be able to identify kind of some areas that we could have some savings if we needed more money to move forward.
But these are grant opportunities to go along with huge expenses we're making.
Right.
Not an audit. So the ComEd one, contact us as soon as you have a plan, and we will help make that plan energy efficient. And we will help find money for things like the natatorium and the Oakton complex. So you could call them tomorrow.
Well, and those are totally fine. I thought we were looking at just overall other district-wide things like.
There's all kinds of things we could do, I think is the bottom
Yeah,
line.
there's a million things.
I talk about energy all the time because it's what I know, but I'm sure from a waste perspective and a water use perspective and.
That's what we thought you were looking for, is a global look at the whole thing.
Yeah, global look.
Yeah.
Well,
But
for
like from an
30,000, you're not gonna get a global look, but we're investing in these huge projects, and can't we look at them very early on with ComEd or whomever, and say, what can we do? What can you do for us?
We would be
Cindy's
doing that for
talking
Oakton
about
anyway.
There's
We'll
a
be doing
program
that.
that they offer for new builds and major renovations where they're like, get in touch with us as soon as you know you're gonna be doing something.
Right.
And we can talk to you and work through.
We plan on
what
doing
you
that
can
with
do
Oakton, with the architects. That's
Okay.
something that's already planned.
But I'm hearing you say that for the other projects. I think we got that out of the last,
Yeah.
meeting as well, like for a lot of the HVAC, the work that we're gonna be doing in the natatorium. So we'll continue those discussions
With ComEd.
with whomever, sure, yeah.
So are we getting any incentives back from ComEd on the HVAC that we're buying for the natatorium or no? Okay, so we haven't, we're not there
With comment already, don't we guys?
We've done things with ComEd in the
Yeah.
past. I mean, and we've done, some energy efficiency things with, when we've done work on heaters, boilers, repairs,
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, not as
It'd be-
much as,
It'd be good to know what we have done, like in the past, and what we've gotten incentives for, but anyway.
Well, and I mean, it just seems like there would be an opportunity for a greater level of savings if you have somebody who actually has, more substantial knowledge in the area versus the staff just pulling their time when they've pulled in so many other directions. And I mean, I feel like this would be an easy position to incentivize because, like if you have like the base salary, but then they realize, kind of like how a salesperson would make commissions on how much they sell, they could see increases in their base rate based on the savings they discover, because it's like theoretically, somebody who's actually in the field and does this more regularly knows about more potential opportunities versus a regular staff person who has 20 other balls they're trying to keep in the air.
are any of you familiar with, or have you seen situations like this where there's like a consultant? I know we used to have someone that worked here that if we brought in, sponsorships or things like that, that they would get a percentage of that as maybe there'd be a baseline, someone would start with maybe some of the $30,000 as a part-time employee that worked closely with like Jennifer on a project basis, that they could overlook all these projects, understand what all those projects are, move forward on them, and then they could be incentivized by getting a percentage of whatever they work in. Is that concept sound?
I wasn't
reasonable, or-
thinking about,
That was just something I was kind of thinking about, listening to the conversation and thinking about like the potential for savings and the potential for savings of somebody who specializes in.
well,
doing
there's something
this
called
work.
performance contracting that's a different sort of thing where they don't get paid based on the savings, but you pay back the capital that you invested in the more efficient equipment via the energy savings you realize. But we're getting into the weeds here. I mean, I really appreciate that you put a line item in. I'm interested in maybe having more, but I do consultant, I feel like consultants burn through money pretty quickly, and I wonder what it would get us. I really want someone who's going to be able to look into all possible opportunities, but I've never worked with a sustainability consultant in this way before, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much in favor of trying to do what we can to expand on that. But it is a challenge when it's your role amongst many people.
Yeah, that's the
That's
thing,
the
like you and I
problem.
talk about so
No, I know.
much stuff, and I want to have time to call people about things, and the referendum passed, I'm like, oh my God, Terry and Jennifer are gonna have so many things coming their way this year, and there's not gonna be time to chase after all these opportunities, because you just need to like get the work done. So I thought it was good timing to bring someone in to help you chase opportunities, whether that's incentives or grants or whatever might be available.
And I think it's a new thing we haven't had in the budget, but I think that there's enough commissioners here saying this is something we want to put money into. And we didn't really have an opportunity to do that until the budget's already done, right? The budget's here, and we're like, okay, these are your priorities, but we see something else that we want to add in. And I appreciate, the line item, like if you spend 30,000 and said, oh, this is really worthwhile, would you spend 30,000 more?
We would probably reevaluate it mid-year. We have opportunities to spend up to 20% at the budget and appropriation, and if it was working, I think that we would expand it.
Right.
Got you.
And that's the conversation I want to have, because when something comes in last minute through emails, there's no conversation, right? It's just like, oh yeah, we'll do this, but I think this is good to hear what people's ideas are and what the opportunities are.
Well, that's why we're here, yeah. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Well, should we ask the board's
Yeah.
consensus on what the dollar amount
Yeah, right.
should be? Because we really, what went into it, again,
This
this is
is
how we.
an unknown for us. There's no
Yeah,
existing position, right?
Budget,
for purpose.
the budget reflects priorities, right? That's what we talk about all the time, and we heard, that this is
A priority,
something we
so we
want to
added
make a
something.
priority. Right, so
if we get consensus, then we can go back and evaluate it further and come back to you at the December meeting and say, okay, yeah, this looks like we
Or
have
what,
to.
or better idea what it might get us, what
Right.
our possibilities are for
Right.
finding a person
Right.
or.
It'd be interesting to know like, how other districts have utilized
Yeah,
consultants
from everything,
for
like
this,
Terry said, I've never heard of it, but,
They haven't used, yeah.
I-
They just
but
lean-
I haven't asked a lot of questions, so we can
Yeah.
ask the question.
It'd be interesting
Yeah.
to know if anybody's.
Right.
Well, because,
I like this starting point, mainly because it's cost neutral. If we're estimating 30,000 in savings, and we're taking that savings and putting it right back into something that didn't exist, I like, what you proposed there, because it puts it on the books.
Right.
With the idea that we can move forward and expand it.
Yeah. See the
As we
savings
see
grow,
the
then we
success
can-
of it. So, just to put it on the books, it's a good start.
right, but I know it will offer savings, but there are plenty of things we do that don't always offer savings.
Yeah.
And I don't think it should be dependent on savings either,
No,
because we have, what were the four things that you said at the very beginning? Programs, facilities, employees, and?
There's five. There's five, yeah.
Facilities.
Asset management.
Yeah, asset management.
Exceptional customer experience.
The core.
Core.
Customer.
I would like.
Customer, financial, administrative, employee, and asset management.
Yeah, and I think there should be another one, our commitment to the environment, or whatever you want to say. We have a green page on our website that says we do all these things, and it's, it's not a priority. It's just not, it's around the edges. So I just think it's something, and it's hard to make changes, hard to fit it into a machine that's already working, and this is a great start. I would like it to be bigger. So,
I think that we also, and that's fine, if that's a consensus of the board. I think that's what Sandra said. If that's consensus, you want us to go back and evaluate this more and make it a higher priority. We do have, right now, I think it's about a $300,000 transfer to capital, is that what it is? So I think then we have to look at, what does the board want to give up, right? Or what do we think we are going to recommend to give up?
except you always do better.
Exactly, if you want to go on that premise, then we see if that happens, right? And if not, then we'd have to cut something, We talked about that. We said we could just add this, add the garden, the two things we've heard so far are this, and adding garden plots. So I think if we could get consensus on those two things, we would at this point just lower the balance. It would, be at the end of the year capital, unless the board tells us no, go back and cut something else, right?
So yeah, why don't we just go down the row?
Right, on the environmental position, yes.
Investment.
Investment. Position, contractual, right, consultant.
Sustainability.
Good word.
Do you have a specific question, or can I just toss some,
I just
No,
want to see
consensus,
what
like-
the temperature of the board in the aggregate is.
I'm in favor of, at that kind of, budget amount, I'm in favor of exploring what our options are and what that would get us. What could that yield? And Commissioner Grau is absolutely right that it doesn't all have to come down to, say, an energy savings in dollars. It doesn't have to be, there can be a cost to the district, I think, for making a stronger commitment to the environment. It might differ on what those things are, but I think it's certainly worth taking a look at what an investment in that process is. Now, I don't know that I have sort of a gut reaction that going out and trying to hire somebody into a position is maybe not the right way to do that.
Yeah, that's not, we're not gonna hire anybody for
We need
$30,000.
to kind of go into a consultant basis, at least baby step in until we see if there is a need for a part-time or full-time type person. I also wonder if some of these things aren't things that you could implement a long-term plan with a short-term expense, that you don't have to have someone monitoring that forever. you could get some sort of plan for the district that says, you know, you're gonna do these things over time, and then.
Plenty of people hire consultants to do that too. I
Right.
think that would be
And then
another
bring them in on
discussion.
different cases if
See,
something
like what
changes
they
on.
would do.
Right,
Yeah.
so,
Like a master plan of sustainability.
People
Right.
do
It is
sustainability
exactly-
planning,
that's the right
that's
way to
like
say it.
perfect, sustainability plans.
But putting that plan together might take $30,000.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
like, I was thinking more like, these are our key capital project, like picking some
Yeah.
things, like looking into energy savings for our bigger capital projects, and then looking at what ideas staff have. A lot of the best ideas are gonna come from staff who run the programs and might have ideas about waste minimization, or you might be able to find like certain big projects for the sustainability consultant to focus on too, instead of spending all of that money just on planning. I guess I'm more like, I'm very implementation minded, and so sometimes.
So we're hearing some people say do a plan, and some people saying,
You know, I'm
Implement
not
right away in
ready to
current
necessarily
projects,
do the
right?
plan.
So
I
we'll
wanna
talk
see
about
some
that.
progress moving in that direction and I mean, I guess the idea, my opinion is that the goal should be the sustainability part of it, right?
Yeah.
So how do we, I don't know how to get there.
well,
and it
and it's
doesn't
new
sound
to
like-
us,
it's
right?
all new-
It's all new to
That's
everybody,
why I wanna go
right?
to conferences, I
Right.
wanna talk to people
So-
from other
so
districts
maybe,
about how they
you
choose
know,
to
so-
do this stuff.
I'm not trying to sway somebody to one position on this. I think that all I wanted to state was that I'm in favor of the concept of
Okay, so
putting
it's,
some money forward to try to.
yes, okay. So, anybody want, we have a consensus on that. So we'll go back and talk about it again. We are not gonna have an exact plan on
No.
this.
Yeah.
We know,
That's why we
that's
put
okay.
You
money
can't
in.
scramble, you can't
Yeah.
scramble and put together, I know, and that's why
Right.
it's a little frustrating,
Like
because it's
December
already a
1st.
done deal, and then we say, but we want this,
Right,
so.
right.
But I
It's
think
the
it's-
timing of all this is a little challenging. That's why we say, let's allocate some resources. And if it's not enough, once we get into this, we have the flexibility mid-year, come back and say, hey, we're gonna change course and we're gonna go this way, like we do with everything,
Well,
right?
Well, and I guess I would like to suggest, we always report on our budget process planning. And, we let you know when we have our budget kickoff meeting
Sure.
and when the process
Yeah.
is beginning.
Probably
So
a
if there
good
are
time.
priorities that the commissioners have or think of for the next
Like
go
garden
around,
plots?
we should, it could be a new business item or,
Yeah,
however
maybe
you
we
wanna
put it on
bring
the
up.
agenda.
Well,
And
and
then
this
we
is
can-
big, it's not even a little thing, this is a big thing, really. It's-
Yeah, so it would be good to kind of.
Hear it earlier, yes.
Incorporate it
Yes.
into our
Yes.
budget plan.
Yes, yes.
Earlier in the process.
And I see this as a toehold into that. The next year it would be a bigger discussion because you have experience
Exactly.
and ideas, and next year it would be more
Right.
fleshed out.
That makes sense.
To go to your original question, that's kind of why we sort of came up with a number to get us.
Yeah, we don't,
Yeah,
no.
in that.
But this was a very helpful discussion, because
Yeah.
it was a little bit hard for me to even kind of envision what like, I get the idea of going after the opportunities. I mean, we've gotten comment rebates on projects we've done before, and things like that, so it's just not, but I wasn't sure what you guys wanted to do.
But Smith
So this
Group might
conversation-
even say, for X amount, we'll do more. We'll look into all those.
Right, and
Right.
I know White does a lot of stuff in
Or
this.
White,
office, too.
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, why, well, that's what I said, that's part of what we'll
Some
be
of the
looking
stuff-
at with those.
some of
Some
the
of it
stuff- I
naturally
realize some of it will naturally happen.
with the projects,
You know.
but not with like the small.
That was some of these
items.
other things,
Yeah.
and I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
I-
the
I
point
just-
was-
But looking for
was
rebates, if we ask, we want to look for rebates,
Right.
And they do custom rebates too.
Custom, we want custom.
Yeah,
I mean, you really gotta like,
Why don't we just hire you, Melissa?
you can't. You'd have to
She's not
quit.
coming for 30.
I know, yeah.
Something else.
Melissa, do you know any people retiring from
Right,
APA who
exactly.
want like a side,
None
like a
that you
part-time
want?
job?
Yes. I tell you, none that I could recommend.
One that moved to Barrington.
All right, let's move on.
Gail also identified something else that had come up related to
The garden
capital.
Yeah.
But was there any other budget priorities that the board would like us to consider that we?
You want us to throw another one your way?
Well,
How did I made it?
I don't think she just answered the question.
You're done.
Just want to make sure.
That's
we
the
have the
opportunity
opportunity.
to to,
3 seconds.
well, the budget, to blow our budget up.
Yeah, right, exactly. Anything else big, bigger? We got the garden plots, we
So,
got the.
yeah, should we talk about the garden plot?
I'm fine with you not putting them in, but what are we gonna find out in 3 years that we don't know now? That's my question.
What do you?
And I did tell Terry this summer what a
She
garden
did.
plot is. I suspect he forgot. Either that or he said he couldn't do them. Just say you forgot, Terry.
I'm not gonna, I didn't forget, I just, we didn't, when I was looking at the overall, what we had to do and the goal of trying to have it for next year with staff and everything. We had a conversation with the neighbors, I recall that conversation, we were gonna give them a year or two to see how this goes before we decide. So, this is one first full year, so, I don't, it just, I have no problem doing it, so we took the time to look through it and what it would cost, if we wanted to, you know, do it over the course of the summer with staff, and we could have it available for 2024, fill in that
That's
available
fine.
space with the
That's
fence,
fine.
or we get aid for next year.
No, I don't want you to spend $59,000 on 18 beds. But please don't make me wait another year. I might be dead.
We'll aim for it. There you go.
I
We're
know.
aiming for it.
This is another thing I've been waiting 7 years
So do
for.
we have consensus amongst the board, because this is an add to the $18,000, correct?
For
Yes.
2024.
No.
No,
No.
the expense would be in '23 in order for the
Get it for
planting
spring.
to be ready
Yeah.
for spring of '24.
We'd be doing the construction.
It would be, what, how much for just the staff, and then if we did a contractual?
18
The 18,000,
for 2024.
Yeah, so the goal would be to have them available. over-
the next year.
Eagle Scouts to do it.
That's just
So,
outrageous.
so you want that option versus the contractual option?
Well, the contractual option was for 2023.
They're both for 20.
Yeah, they
We're
were
both for 23.
Just one was having staff do it, one was having.
One was trying to get it ready for planting in May of 2023, the other was doing the work during the summertime of 2023.
Right.
By
And having it
For
ready for
2020.
planting. in
So
2020.
different
That's what I
seasons.
just said.
Yeah, but the money would be spent in 2023.
Right.
So we need to capital.
So which one do you want? Do you want to spend, how much was it?
Spend less and use the savings on sustainability.
There you go.
B, but it's an ad.
It's an ad.
But it's an ad. So,
Okay.
again, I'm hearing from one or two people.
Right, we need to hear from the rest of you.
Anybody else want to add 18,000 for 18 beds?
I do. I'm in
But
on
that will be for 2024.
Right,
You got it.
but I understand they'll be built, they'll be ready to go in 2024, but they're in the budget for 2023 because of when they were
Right.
built. I got it.
And yeah, but if there's another option for contractual, then we could try to get them ready for 2023.
What do you mean by,
It would cost, we put that in
The
the,
estimated cost is $59,000.
my computer's doing some updating and all of a sudden. What is it?
$59,000.
That would be.
yeah, I'd rather have the 18,000.
And wait?
And yeah, I mean, like,
I'm saying
Joe
not,
just mentioned
yes,
Eagle
yes.
Scouts.
And we can assess how this summer goes too with.
What was the neighbor's reaction to the?
Or what day,
Or
or
you
on
could
what
put it
day?
off until,
Yeah.
or you could put it off until the 2024 budget and do the contractual in 2024 to get it open in the spring of
Oh, 50,000 to go
2025.
to 18 guard beds? I'm
That
sorry.
seems kind of obscene.
Okay.
So we'll go with the staff. Raise your hand if you want to go with the $18,000.
Do the cheap
Okay,
one.
all right.
That's consensus.
Thank you.
And you know, like Commissioner
Feel like a
mentioned
cheat.
mentioned
Raise your
Eagle
hand.
Scouts, but like, that wouldn't actually be a terrible idea, because one of the things that I had suggested in the email was if we could add a bed that would be designated for scout troops to use, and that, you know, like, they would put in for a lottery for it, and there'd be a rule, like, you couldn't have the same troop hold on to it for, you know, a couple consecutive years, but that could be something where then either, you know, Girl Scouts going for their Gold Star, or Eagle, you know, Boy Scouts going for their Eagle could actually build the scout bed.
Yeah. So we'll save one for the scouts.
So that would be my thought.
All right? Okay. Anything else?
Any other thoughts or discussion about the budget now before I think we move
Oh.
to the next?
Mary Ann just reminded me. We were going to remind the board that in that budget, we had a request for, when we go back to our home over there, a microphone for each commissioner, so that's in the budget. That's a $10,000 cost to add microphones to the board table. So you don't have to share.
That's not an addition.
That's not an addition.
It was in the budget. It's
You don't
just
have
one of
to-
those little line items that you may not have noticed, and we thought we'd let you know.
Hopefully that
Thank
makes
you.
Mary Ann's job easier.
Okay, so I have I think a budget-related question, I think for April. So, we're going back a little bit, but I don't think, I just want your opinion on things, I kind of wrote it down here. So, were there programs that you, when you look at all of this in 5%, were there programs that could probably bear greater than 5% increase and still remain competitive, and also, not price out the patrons, So, are there areas where you think, or you may not even look that way, because you might have been like, this is 5%, so what can we do with 5%? In some cases, you had to take more because the expenses were going to be more, but in some areas, but I don't know if you addressed it. I hope you didn't, and that I just didn't miss it. But that there might be some areas where you could take a 7% increase in a fee or an 8% increase in a fee, and still have a great competitively priced product, and not alienate or eliminate participation from the people that are using that program.
There were some that we discussed, and one specifically we talked about were the pool pass fees. We contemplated going up to 6% after we looked at some of the comparison fees. We didn't know what everybody's were going to be, but we felt like compared to the market that it could bear that, but we didn't. It's tough. It's tough to raise fees because we care about it.
Right.
And, so it's definitely a balance. I think there's other programs that we potentially could do that with,
Okay.
that we have to back some that, most of the comparisons except for the ice rinks, we're like, yeah, we're good.
Good. Thank you.
Anybody else? They're
I think
awfully
you
quiet
guys-
over
You
there.
guys always do a very good job, and just because we bring things up doesn't mean you don't, it's
what it's
excellent.
for.
It's tied up in a bow, and it's delivered, and you always come through. So I have to give that to all of you that work so hard at this. You can answer every question, everything that went into this, and it's amazing.
Thank you. The team effort, that's for sure.
That's
And it-
great, that's what makes it good.
I think one of the things I'm taking from this is that we will do that, and we'll kind of not egg you on, but just push a little bit more earlier in the process when we start this and put it on the agenda for the bigger items. If you have these things, and then we can talk about it as a
Well, there
group.
shouldn't be a lot of them, but,
Right,
this is.
Just so we can get it out. Well, we can still manage it,
Right.
but, it would help all of us. Okay, great. Next on the agenda.
All
That
right.
minor detail.
You said the best for last.
Yep, exactly.
All right.
Get some sugar.
Everyone ready? So now we move on to item 10, the adoption of truth in taxation resolution number 22-2. I move to adopt resolution number 22-2, a resolution determining the amounts of money exclusive of debt service and the election costs estimated to be necessary to be raised by taxation pursuant to the proposed levy of the Park Ridge Park District for the levy year 2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I feel like there's probably going to be a lot of discussion on this one. Senator, do you have or Gail, do you have anything to present before we go to commissioner discussion?
I would just point out that I presented, or I included a memo explaining the process. If there's any questions on the process, I'm happy to explain it. I know a lot of times it's like, why do we vote on the levy twice? And it's just that by law and in order to comply with the Truth in Taxation Act, which if you are doing an increase greater than 5% and a hearing is required, you have to determine what that amount is, so you know whether or not you're gonna need a hearing. So this is the action that makes that determination. And then after the hearing, or if you don't need a hearing, whatever, you still have to adopt the actual tax levy ordinance, which is what gets filed with the county, and that's what has them extend the taxes.
And it has to be done, this has a deadline of
The
last Tuesday of December.
So
So
can I
then you
just
need-
clarify that we're doing this and you would vote yes if you are for increasing the CPI?
Correct, with the recommended from the staff. And
Right.
If you're voting no, you do not want that increase. And you can say what your alternative proposal may be, or to
In the
consider.
discussion.
Or,
And just to clarify, it is, this year, it is not the consumer price index that we're limited by, because the law is the lesser of the CPI, or 5%. And as I pointed out in the presentation, inflation last year was actually higher than 5%. So we're capped by the PTEL law to 5%.
and if the board needs to, we can put a couple of, she's got the slides from the last meeting, so if you need a reminder of what those dollar amounts are, or whatever, we can do that.
And I think that might be helpful to throw that up there while we have the discussion.
We're seeing it.
What? Well, I mean, we want.
I liked the thing you sent as an attachment. of
And we
how
did
many
sign,
times we
yeah.
have to know. Does anybody need that slide?
To show the amounts. so-
What was the amount?
It's like 284.
It's on the first one.
The projector rebelled
First
against.
presentation is open, it's time.
Get up.
What was this coming off the ground?
What?
The PowerPoint.
Now mine's spinning.
Oh, if I go there.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the Wi-Fi went down too.
It's not, I'm working off of a hard drive and I was
Oh.
having trouble with this earlier for some reason, so.
Yeah, but I'm not getting it now either. Wi-Fi's working. Oh, I got out of my extender too.
Well, while we're waiting, I don't necessarily need a slide to say what I'm about to say. If that's-
All right.
Please,
if you-
please,
I
please,
can fill I can fill the gap.
Okay.
So I wrote this down because you all know how ham-handed I am when I talk off the cuff. So I actually wrote down 4 points. The first two are really have to do with the fact that we are taking in more money without considering last year's levy. We are likely to be taking in more tax revenue than we've anticipated in previous budgets and in the estimate, but we don't know some of that because of Cook County. I'm going to kind of skip
That's
over that.
false. That's false.
Oh, let Commissioner Price finish first. please.
But can you just clarify that? We take in what we put in for it. It doesn't
Right,
increase.
but we, I think you said yourself, we always have more than what's in the budget, and we also.
Fees, not through taxes.
Okay. Well, I will leave that for future discussion, because it's really not the crux of why I'm opposed to the levy increase. I'll stick to the fact that we just passed a referendum. It passed by a healthy, I'll just read what I wrote. The referendum passed by a very healthy margin. Our residents took the opportunity to voice their opinion on the project, and 9,107 residents, 56% of those who voted yes. Many of the no votes were based on tax concern, based on comments from my constituents. Even a large number of the yes voters would likely find this double dipping into their wallets off-putting. Voters have long memories, and the memory of an additional tax increase immediately following the increase for the referendum might affect support for future referendum. A budget can be established. It doesn't sacrifice our standards for the maintenance of our properties, which was alluded to recently, proper compensation for district staff, and improvements to our amenities and programming, and also does not increase the tax burden of our residents any more than we have done already by the combination of last year's levy increase and this year's projected referendum increase. So I will not be voting to increase the tax levy this year. I'm voting for a zero increase in the tax levy.
Should we just go down the line and hold on, we can go back, circle back to Commissioner Hultings. I feel like this is probably an issue that everybody has an opinion on.
I don't want to go next. I want to listen to, I have not fully decided, so.
All right. Commissioner Tunnell, would you like to go next?
Sure, I'm not in support of raising the taxes right after the referendum passed, and similar to what Commissioner Clint said, I vote no.
Commissioner Graff?
This is the nuts and bolts of how we run our district. This is how we pay our staff. This is how we give our staffs salary increases. This is our bread and butter. What we're doing at Oakton is something that's capital. It's not money that we can spend on all the things we talked about today. It's for Oakton and only Oakton. If we want to increase staff, increase salaries, keep up with inflation, we have to do this. And it's much better for our citizens to have small incremental tax increases than huge bumps like we just did. I also think that our community said we support the Park District when they voted for that. Most of them will have no idea what the small, what is it per household?
It's 11.
$11 a year.
Or no, 21.
20.
It's 11 a month for the referendum and $21.
$21 for the year.
For the year.
Right. So I think we witnessed that our community is willing to support our park districts, and it's our job to keep them funded so that we don't end up with buildings that we can't take care of. And that's what happens when you don't increase your taxes and don't plan for the future.
Commissioner Bell?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Grau. And this is the way the economy works. It expands. We need to expand our budgets accordingly. And this year it just so happens to be reflective of inflation. When I voted against the referendum, it was because of fear that the economy was going to be failing at this time of the year and that people could not burden an increase of that amount. And that's why I felt that we needed to have a lower referendum amount in order to ensure success. I think what happened with the referendum results is it showed the economy is doing very well and that the Park District citizens are very willing and able to support these increases that several months ago were never, were very dire in terms of costs. But the citizens showed us that they want these amenities, they need the improvements to service, and we have an excellent staff that's making this work and be very successful. So I am in favor of the recommendation from the city.
Can I add one more thing? The other thing that it prevents is increasing fees for classes so that they're out of reach of our citizens. That's another thing this helps keep our fees lower.
So I sent something to the commissioners yesterday, and you kind of know how I feel about taking the CPI. Because, I think this referendum proved that the citizens are willing to support our park district and keep up the maintenance, keep up the buildings, keep up good employees, do what a good park district does. So like I said, used to be, a glass of beer at a restaurant, now it's a glass of beer at Soldier Field. So this is what this is what taking the $21 and a year for an average, and that was what it would be. But really, this is, the referendum proved, people don't mind a good park district, and they want to keep the investment in their houses strong. So I'm going to be voting yes.
All right, and guess I'm up next. So, I don't always vote the same way on the CPI. I generally try to take it on a year-to-year basis, and we really did just get a big ask from the community. I was, one of the commissioners who wanted us to put that ask before the community, because I did believe that this was something that the community would like, but at the same time, I wanted to put it in their hands, and I do feel like the timing of it, because when we looked at the budget, we're looking at how fees for memberships and things like that are going up, and we're looking at the money that they're willing to pay, but then I don't think they would, there's a lot of our constituents who I don't think would be real happy that on the tails of that to see the CPI increase. And, I remember Jim O'Donnell had something like, well, it's a cup of coffee or a cup of beer here, a cup of coffee there, but it does add up to real money. And when you think about, yes, our economy, the cost in this economy for us are going up, but the cost of living for the average Park Regis citizen is going up in a lot of ways too, right? I see when I go to the grocery store, the same bag of groceries costs considerably more now than it did 2 years ago, right? Our citizens are also feeling the pinch in a lot of different places, because this is the kind of increase that in theory I would support, but when I look at the practical realities of what our population is dealing with, I have to vote no this year. Melissa?
I just interrupt and tell you the amount.
Please go.
Just a second. Sandra, maybe you can clarify on gobbledygook from the first 2 points that I was going to try to make regarding the amount of actual dollars that we collect from property taxes in each year. Does that adjust the actual dollars based on increases in the equalized assessed valuation that is somewhat tied to a CPI sort of thing? I don't know if it's exactly CPI, but so if we collected X in 2021, we collect X plus in 2022.
So the levy is a dollar amount. When we put together the tax levy ordinance, it is a dollar amount for each of these specific levies and then a total dollar amount. And that is what the county extends. That's what they spread out across all of these different EAVs. So the change in EAV affects the tax rate, but it doesn't affect the dollar amount that we collect. And we've been very, very consistent in our annual collections at approximately 98%. So that's why we add that 2% loss and costs on there. And we say we budget at 100% of our levy. We don't count the loss and costs because it kind of washes out, because we end up with about 98% of what the total extension is, which includes that 2%. So I would say, no, there's not an adjustment based on EAV. You see that in the rates, but the dollar amount that we're extending doesn't change based on that. And our collection percentage is very consistent over time.
So in previous years where we didn't, or where we went flat, that means that we collected the same dollars in that year as the previous year in real dollars.
In nominal dollars.
Okay.
In
Then
real
now we're getting
dollars,
into the weeds.
in real dollars, it was likely less, right?
Okay.
Because of inflation.
Oh, right, okay, because of inflation, so we would have, okay. that's fine.
Can I just say something? I just want you to draw your attention to the dollar amounts on the screen. So we've just added, at minimum, $48,000 tonight. We're transferring 300,000 to capital. So we'll also need, depending on how this goes, we'll need direction on what type of things you want to cut, because we will be cutting. Or just taking a chance that we'll do better. Sure. That's the board's choice.
Cutting $342,000.
That's
Plus 48.
200, I mean,
200 more.
I'm not hearing that you don't want to
the new property.
Obviously.
Yeah.
include the estimate for the property. I mean, if that's, we can go back and talk about that. But I think my understanding is we're talking about the 5%.
So that's equivalent to what our overage was that we were hoping to move to capital.
Exactly. And, you know, the only thing I'll throw in, you know, from a staff perspective is we have a lot of unknowns with inflation and with staff costs, right? You saw those numbers and, you know, Splend's paying their lifeguards, what, $17 an hour last year? I mean, so there's competition we don't know about. 18?
Yeah, 18 if they work it.
Starting at 18. So I'm just saying that it's your choice, but we may have to cut some things, you know, to come in balance. If you want us to come in balance and not even transfer capital. That's all. Because our goal is always to transfer something to capital to support next year's.
So we have money to fix our buildings, to
pretty
maintain our buildings, and that's where our money comes from, to maintain all our facilities,
Mhm.
is that 300,000.
Well, last year was the first year since I've been on the board that we increased the levy ask, and we
Yes.
never failed to maintain our property in any of the years prior.
Yeah, it's getting more difficult with all the factors we explained.
I would just take a moment to point out that we've been deferring capital too. We've consistently pushed back the replacement schedule for playgrounds and vehicles to help balance the capital needs.
Wasn't there a chart you had where the 23 was going to be higher in expenses and revenues, didn't you?
That was the general fund.
Well, okay, so that's fine.
But all together,
Yeah.
the whole fund, we would end up with about a $300,000 transfer with what was presented tonight.
Terry, I would want to, I don't like the kicking the can down the road idea when it comes to the maintenance. I think that's a kind of a fool's game. Those particular issues that you're talking about, I think you've done an excellent job of saying, like, yeah, we can get another year out of this project, this playground, for example, or that playground, where it wasn't a matter that we wouldn't be able to use it the year after. We weren't driving it into the dirt, so to speak.
Yeah,
So-
and we do that. I mean, it's an annual discussion that we have as a team and that we bring, you know, obviously we put that together before we bring it to the board. Can the playground last? Sure, but if it's, you know, 20 years old, it's not what the neighbors want in the neighborhood. They always want the playground. But when we look at the overall needs of the district, we go through a process as a staff to kind of balance those things out. Because that's just the way we're set up, it's not going to do,
So deferring certain maintenance items or repairs or replacements is part of, like, what you do every year, no matter what. You may very well do some of that this year. It isn't, but it's not in the sense, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's not in the sense where I think many years ago in this park district, for example, and we could maybe point to other government entities where they kind of deliberately ran things into the ground and to save their budget, right? And we don't do that. We've never.
But it was happening 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how we got in the position where we're in the catch-up mode, right?
Right.
So now we're catching up, but there's always something else that,
Right,
that we add into
there's
it.
South Park, there's Main Park, there's
So many
millions.
capital needs.
There's so many capital needs, and it's not just playgrounds. When you say
It's not.
playgrounds, that sounds really simple.
That's just an
Well,
example. That's an
it is-
example.
It is, and it's, you know, I think another thing to point out too is that when I came here many years ago, the line items for these playground replacements, these many years out, was about $50,000 or $60,000.
Right.
Northeast Park cost us $400 and something thousand. So we had to make adjustments along the way, and if we're not adding to that or bringing in revenues, that's, and those are things that are open for, so it's just.
Gail, could the concept of the employee benefits that we corrected after so many years of seeing it be different from other park districts also be an indication of deferred benefit or deferred payments, where it should have probably been corrected several years ago, but now
We put off,
we're
yeah,
more.
we did put off, and I can't remember the number of years that we said that we put off that study.
Yep.
Compensation study.
Yeah, the compensation
And
study.
adding the family to the health insurance. That-
Right,
I
and the
think
health
that was
insurance,
deferred as well.
those things.
So we all voted for that just a few months ago.
Exactly.
Probably with the idea that costs
It'll cost
were
something.
going to go up, and not that that was this amount,
Right,
because it certainly wasn't close, but it's the truck, it's the playground, it's the employee benefits, that is
cumulative.
delayed costs that we push down the road.
Now, we worked very hard, I guess, to catch up, right? From the years that, and again, you're gonna vote how you vote, and I understand everybody has their, their philosophies or whatever, but, this is the way park districts are funded, right? And in a lot of places, and we put up, I think, who's taking what that we know of, this is the way we're able to fund ourselves, right? And all it does, I mean, like you said, we always do better, credit to the staff, but it's really, what does this community expect? The community expects the best, right? And so that's all it's gonna, not all it's gonna do, but we feel like that's delaying things for, the community and for our staff, right? So that's a choice we have to make.
Every time I've been in a class for, the conference or whatever, I remember at the boot camp, I said, do you take the CP at CPI? And she looked at me like, are you stupid? Of course
It's
you
more,
don't.
right, it's more
of course we do.
odd not to take it. It's more,
Yeah, very much so. So
odd's not the word.
really short-sighted if you're thinking of letting them personally.
That's common, right, so that's common, so yeah, this is what we're seeing.
But it's equivalent to saying we're not gonna put aside money for capital next year. And it just pushes more things, and we haven't seen that list this year, but, it's sideways, 8.5 by 11, and it's 4 or 5 pages long, and it goes out 20 years of everything that needs to be replaced. And
Right.
it's
It just pushes things back.
mind-boggling. I mean, and that's how you get buildings that look like Oakton.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying you could have fixed all of
No,
Oakton's
that's what
problems,
that's Centennial was like that, we've done a lot of catch
That's
up.
how we have to do
Um,
these huge capital expenditures,
right.
because we're kicking the can down the road.
Well, and, that referendum, we could never pay for, right? By just
Well,
regular
that's what I'm
financing,
saying,
that's,
but there
that's,
were things we could have done
Right.
over there.
yeah, that's how park districts are financed, and it's less common to not take a CPI because it's just part of our funding mechanism, I guess is what I'm trying to say, so, again, that's just my 2 cents. Commissioner Holting?
This just, I hate this. This is like the worst part of it. I remember having long discussions with both Commissioner Grau about this and former Commissioner O'Donnell when I was running to get some different perspectives. And I've gone back and forth on this in my mind. And I don't want to blather on about it. I see both sides. People in the community are going to be facing increased costs, and we passed the referendum, and they're going to be paying more for that. But we also need to plan for our facilities. So I'm extraordinarily torn, and I think I've gone a few different ways today. alone, but I think, I remember meeting with Terry after I became the Buildings and Grounds liaison and talking about how everything had been so deferred over time. And when he came in, it was, things had been left alone for a long time. So I think I'm going to be voting yes. It's going to be a couple bucks a month and an investment in our future, but I think this is going to be hard for me every year. So. Some people, it's not as hard.
Yeah, we should be doing official roll call.
Yeah, I said, should we take the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Ready? Commissioner Coyne,
Nay.
Commissioner Grau,
Yes.
Commissioner Hulting,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnell,
No.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc.
No.
4 passes.
Thank you.
I'm glad that we were able to have a robust discussion about that. Any new business?
I have a pickleball report.
I-
I was gone 7 days, so I only have 2 days to report. Maybe we should put this under old business, but, I have a timestamp even. On 11/4 at 9:28 a.m., 12 pickleballers, 0 tennis. On November 10, 2 tennis at 12:30 p.m. That's
All right.
Should we get you a computer
North
and
I just take notes on my phone and a time
a clipboard? Yeah.
All
This is
right.
gonna be a scientific study.
Nah.
Any other new business other than stopping pickleball?
Apparently, there's a pickleball player who is concerned about someone stalking from her. We're not sure who she is.
I walk my dog past her, they have no idea what I'm doing.
All right, so I think that brings us to adjournment. I move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. Is there a second?
Second.
Third.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And we are adjourned.
Thank you very much.